Oh, oh, this, then this. Come on. So why play pathetic like that? Hmm. Checkmate. This one. This. This. Gotham birthday bash. Oh, okay. Knight h2 check. King plays g1. Knight f3 check. Then queen falls. This, this, this. Whoa, whoa, wait. Oh. Hmm. See, why did I get it wrong? This, so you deliver mate. We go. But why did I take time? This, this. Delayed, delayed, delayed. Oh, oh, pathetic. Honestly. Check. Mate. Ni buerai. Ooh. Poor. Absolutely poor. Honest. What is the best continuation here? This. Oh, this. So this is what I was feeling. Huh. And then this. Pathetic.
Separate him from chess. She said, okay, go play chess. When that's over, you can start your life. You can do something important.
NBC News correspondent Dick Schaap was in Iceland today, and here's what Fisher said.
How does it feel now? You have the world championship. You're the best in the world at what you've devoted your life to. How does that feel inside?
Feels pretty good, yeah. I mean, my goal now is to play a lot more chess. I feel I haven't played enough chess.
office between the mayor, or did you ever thought of anything like that?
No, I never, thought this was going to happen, with chess. I just hope this keeps on.
I just had a premonition that something awful was going to happen to him. I didn't know what it would be, but I didn't feel good about it.
One of Fischer's problems was that after the match, he was supposedly better known by the population of the world than anyone except for Jesus Christ. And he was a guy who treasured his privacy. He had a problem.
The entire world knows the name Bobby Fischer by now.
Was it a letdown after it was all over, Bobby? I mean, it was, well, there must have been a tremendous,
It was. I woke up the day after the thing was over, and I just felt different. Like something had been taken out of me.
He didn't really, after he won, know what he wanted to do with his life. He reached an end point when he was 29.
He was 29 years old, and he hadn't had a childhood.
but is it not true that, the chess masters are always young men, and that they don't last?
That's been true, generally speaking, but there are exceptions. Steinitz, who was 63 when he was world champion.
But you're in a fortunate position, because most of this in life, no matter how successful we think we are, we still have to do what other people want us to do, just to hold jobs. But you don't have to hold a job, you're on your own. It's a unique position.
That's right. You can't say, well, if Fischer won't come, we'll get some other chess genius who's the best in the world.
Bobby Fischer, the world champion chess player, has until midnight tonight to decide whether to abide by the international rules of chess or give up his title. If Fischer defaults, the title would go to the challenger, Soviet Grandmaster Anatoly Karpov.
He wanted probably to play the kid from Russia, Karpov, and beat him. I mean, it would be an easy task. On the other hand, part of him knew he could lose, and that's death to Bobby. He didn't want to risk that. So what came out was a series of new demands on the rules.
First of all, I like to play matches without draws. And they're going to have to increase the prizes if they want me to play. Once I get the title, they want me to play a match for the title. I'm not going to just play for what their minimum prizes are.
Accepting all Fischer demands was unacceptable politically for the Soviet Chess Federation.
Barring a very unlikely last-minute change of heart by Fischer, Anatoly Karpov becomes the new champion by default.
The World Chess Party gave him about 95% of what he wanted. But that was it. He didn't defend his title.
Непобедимости, и он не смог преодолеть самого себя.
I think he was unable to cope with his own invincibility.
Снова сесть за шахматную доску, не
He got more or less scared to sit down again in front of the board and risk losing.
взятую партию. В общем, не
But only he who never plays never loses.
We all felt disappointed that he'd let chess down, he'd let the American masters down. Yeah, we all felt kind of a betrayal.
Others could suffer from a period of creative depression after such debacle.
I went out to California on a job, phoned Bobby, picked him up in Pasadena when he was staying some cult place he was staying.
I've had so many bad experiences.
And he would talk about nuclear disarmament, our capabilities, ICBMs and that, you know. And that would go on for about an hour and a half.
Just what is the Worldwide Church of God?
Bobby had been involved with the Church of God since 1962. And after he won the championship, the church was providing him with a place.
The Worldwide Church of God was a
a group of people that believed in fundamental principles of the Bible. Some people would probably call us fundamentalists.
That will bring on the great tribulation, and that will end in the second coming of Christ, the end of this present civilization.
Basically, a sense that there was an impending coming Christ, and we need to prepare for that particular second coming.
I told him it's all a bunch of hooey, but that's what he chose to do.
I have warned you may be living in the time in which you will see.
I went to his apartment in Pasadena. It seemed to me pretty hopeless.
He was extremely depressed.
Yeah, our guest house.
We would get into these long discussions about the Bible. Why are we here? What are we doing here? What is life?
Power and strength under the beast.
That's when he started to go haywire.
He felt that he was being influenced by these Russians, and he also was scared of the Mossad, Israeli secret police.
Spy apparatus. Well, it's not just a spy apparatus. They're actually making things happen.
He felt that he could be easily spied upon through radioactivity and through other means, fillings.
He thought maybe the Russians could send signals here.
Phones.
Tinfoil over the windows.
Media. Radioactive. This is paranoia.
Yes, but why does the U.S. have all these enemies all over?
We tried, as church members, to bring him in to a little more of a normal life.
I think he turned against the Worldwide Church of God when one of its prophecies patently did not come to pass.
That in the last days, at these times right now in which we're living, perilous times shall come.
Fisher felt betrayed. He wrote a pamphlet attacking the church and Armstrong, its leader, saying that nobody should ever control your mind.
I was never a member of the Church of God. Absolutely not true. It's a lie.
As he denied God, he began to get worse.
Started to go astray. He started reading the protocols of the Elders of Zion, which you mentioned to me, and I said that book is a forgery and it's a hoax and it's a bit of anti-Semitic propaganda that even Hitler used.
Protocol number 1. What has restrained the wild beast we call men?
He got into all these doctrines.
What has influenced them heretofore?
The Illuminati. All these different people that were going to take over the world.
Protocol number 9. Merciless revenge and bitter hatred. From us emanates an all-embracing terror.
We began to see less of Bobby as we didn't want to expose our children to the famous uncle who's become fulminating anti-Semite.
Hitler said in Mein Kampf that the Jews are not the victims, but they're the victimizers.
We could be having dinner and he would suddenly start thinking about the Jews did this and the Jews did that, and in our house it was just unacceptable.
They're actually making things happen and causing revolutions and killing people all over the world. They start mixing fish with humans and anything's possible.
His mother was Jewish. His real father was Jewish. It's complete madness.
The question is, how could a Jewish kid become an anti-Semite? Paranoid psychosis. He had false fixed ideas of a very widening conspiracy against him. It was as if he were at war with himself.
He became a recluse. Fisher watchers refer to it as the wilderness years.
Okay, thank you.
Where's Bobby these days?
Oh, Bobby's at home.
We're in New York.
Well, I don't think that I want to get onto the subject of Bobby. You know how Bobby feels about it.
Last conversation we had enraged him.
Oh.
If you don't play chess, there will soon come a time when no one will ask you to play chess.
Okay.
He thought that was unacceptable. And that was the end of our relationship.
If you look throughout history, there have been a disproportionate number of extremely talented chess players who've also had serious psychological issues.
You are putting yourself in a world that is infinite. It's It's abstract. You are, in essence, reshaping your mind. If you understand that in the first move of a chess game, each player has 20 possible moves. If you multiply 20 by 20, that means there are 400 different possible chess positions after the first move.
The tree becomes with a lot of branches, that you start with one move, and on that one move there are several options. Then all of a sudden it becomes a jungle.
The number of all positions that theoretically can occur in the game of chess is something like 10 with 45 zeros. It's like the number of atoms in the solar system.
You're trying to anticipate what your opponent might do, and you don't know what he might do, so you're thinking of all the different possibilities. A good chess player is paranoid on the board, but then if you take that paranoia to real life, it doesn't play so well. You end up seeing your real world according to the confines of chess.
There were some that came to a sad end. I mean, we like to think that chess didn't cause that, but maybe it didn't.
An individual with an unbalanced tendency, by becoming a chess monomaniac, will throw himself over the brink.
Yeah, we have some examples where people of exceptional abilities were infected by this mental illness.
Viktor Korchnoi claimed to have played a match with a dead man. He even provided the moves.
Rubinstein.
Rubinstein jumped out the window because the fly was after him.
Wilhelm Steinitz.
Steinitz was in an institution.
Steinitz in late life thought he was playing chess by wireless with God Almighty, and had the better of God Almighty.
Carlos Torre took all his clothes off on a bus.
And the probably greatest name, the greatest impact on the game of chess in the 19th century belonged to an American player, Paul Morphy. Unfortunately, there's some resemblance with Fischer.
Paul Morphy was an American player who stunned the world with his chess play. And then at age 26, he wandered the streets aimlessly, he muttered to himself, he became a paranoid schizophrenic.
His tour in Europe in 1858, 1859 was one of the most unforgettable events in the history of chess. And then Morphy stopped playing chess.
There are many similarities between Morphy and Fischer.
People are always going to equate their names together.
They both gave up the game at the height of their powers.
And disappeared into a world of neurosis, of psychosis.
Where did Bobby Fischer go?
What happened to Bobby
He
Fischer?
spent countless hours prowling the streets where he's been known to roam, looking for him at chess clubs where he's been known to play. Ultimately, the Now investigation was successful. We found Bobby Fischer. The quest paid off.
In 1990, he shows up in Pasadena, a little on the heavy side. He's handing me this letter. Mr. Fischer, you are the Mozart of the chess world. I want you to get back into chess. Her name was Zita. I wonder what she looks like, Harry. All of a sudden, he's romantically entwined. She got him off all of his rationalizations why he couldn't play chess anymore. And she set up the tournament.
After many false alarms, it was a 19-year-old Hungarian chess player, Zita Reiksani, who brought Fischer back to chess.
Do you think he's still as handsome now?
What do you think? As a result of their meeting, Zita rushed off to arrange Bobby's comeback.
The chess world was shaken today with news that an old legend lives, apparently ready to risk himself in public again. Headlines around the world announced he'd signed a contract
to play a rematch with his old Russian rival from Iceland, Boris Spassky.
I was in the chess school. Everybody's waiting for him to play for 20 years. I mean, month after month, year after year, there are these stories. He's negotiating this. You know, someone's trying to raise this for him. He wouldn't play. Finally, he plays.
He was playing in Yugoslavia against Spassky. It was trumpeted as a return World Championship match.
This is a typical question from Mr. Roger Cohen of the New York Times. If you beat Spassky, would you go on to challenge Kasparov for the World Championship? Can he read what it says behind here?
The match took place in Yugoslavia during the middle of the Yugoslav War, and by participating, Fischer broke a UN-backed embargo.
The U.S. government sent him a letter and said, don't play. If you do, you're going to go to jail.
This is my reply to their order not to defend my title here. That's my answer.
The match of 92, in my view, had no chess relevance. They played a very decent chess, but it was chess of 1972.
It's like watching two old boxers come back into the ring for one last payday. A slightly sad affair where both players are clearly past their best. Both Fischer and Spassky are shadows of their former selves.
He won and won several $1 million, but was declared a criminal for having taken part in the match.
Today, a federal grand jury here in Washington charged Robert James Bobby Fischer with a criminal violation of the United States imposed sanctions on the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. Fischer faces up to 10 years in prison, and the millions of dollars of proceeds of the chess match are forfeitable to the United States. Bobby Fischer, like anyone else, should be held accountable for his actions.
The cost was very high. I mean, he lost his country. He couldn't come back. He was indicted. A lot of people questioned the validity of this indictment, but it was a law, so Fischer broke the law.
He couldn't come back in the country. They were out to arrest him, so he became an expatriate.
They said if I return, I will be arrested, and if I'm convicted, it could be millions of dollars and 10 years in prison for playing chess, which is absurd, you know.
I saw him in Yugoslavia. It was pointless. You know, he was gone. It was no longer a story.
I knew Zita. I knew her personally. And she was a nice girl, but who knows what he did there.
Joan had gone to Hungary in 1995 to visit Bobby when he was staying in Budapest. That's the last of our family who'd seen him. Regina died in 96, and my wife Joan died in 1998 from a cerebral hemorrhage, no forewarning at all. Died within a half a day.
It was a tragedy. His mother dies, his sister dies.
Bobby was stripped of any family support that he could hope for. And when he was a man without a country, he got worse and worse.
我们来看这条震惊世界的消息。北京时间今天晚上8点30分左右。This
is all wonderful news. It's time for the fucking U.S. to get their heads kicked in. It's time to finish off the U.S. once and for all. This just shows you that what goes around comes around, even for the United States.
He felt that he was above politics and could say whatever he wanted to say. And George Bush says, no, you're not. I can grab you wherever you are.
United States citizen Robert Bobby Fischer has been detained by Japanese authorities on alleged immigration law violations.
I got a collect phone call from Japan, from who I said, or she said,
Bobby Fischer. 22 years, I haven't heard from him, not anything. But he must have kept me in the drawer or something, so I was not completely forgotten when he needed me. And I went to Japan to get this man out of jail. When I saw him there, that was on his birthday. He asked me if I could help him out, you know. I said, I will see what I can do.
Yfirmaðurinn hann segir það að Bobby Fischer hann yrði leystur úr haldi til land sem reiðubúið til að veita honum ríkisfang.
Iceland has stood up and offered him residency. Iceland has stood up and given him passport. At the end, we, this small nation of 300,000 people, intervened and went against the United States and Japan, the two strongest economies in the world, and got into Iceland.
Þarna örþreyttur Bobby Fischer borð ásamt unnustu sinni og föruneyti eins og Páll Magnússon sagði. Hann verið flautur. Welcome to Iceland, Mr. Fischer. How does it feel to be home?
Great.
You're getting quite a hero's welcome. Did you expect this?
No, I didn't.
We've got a car waiting for you. This is your first time in Iceland in quite a few years. You weren't that thrilled the first time around. Think it will be better this time?
That is not true. I never. You mean I didn't want to play here originally?
Yeah.
I'll explain all that. That was all a CIA setup. I'll explain that someday.
We look forward to that. Bobby Fischer, welcome to Iceland and thanks for talking to us. Have a good night. Við það. Bobby Fischer fyrir Íslandi. Hefur ekki á móti þessu.
Sorry for keeping you waiting.
How does it feel to be a free person?
Oh, it feels great. You got a wonderful country, wonderful fresh air, very fine people, excellent food, plenty of room.
What's next, Bobby?
I still want to do a book showing how the 1984-85 Karpov-Kasparov match was prearranged, move by move. They're all saying, oh, Fischer didn't write the book he said he was going to write. Yeah, but they don't say that they stole all my file on it. They don't say they stole several big moving boxes full of books that took me years to accumulate. Well, what is your name?
Jeremy.
Jeremy what?
Schaap.
Your father was Dick Schaap, you were telling me last night?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I knew him, yeah. He rapped me very hard. He said that I don't have a sane bone in my body. I didn't forget that. His father, many, many years ago, befriended me. Took me out to see, I don't remember what.
Knicks games.
Knicks games, and
you were 12.
Acted kind of like a father figure. And then later, like a typical Jewish snake, he had the most vicious things to say about me.
I have to object.
Okay. Did you read the article where he said I don't have a sane bone in my body?
Honestly, I'm not sure if I read it, but I know that he said it.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't know that you've done much here today, really, to disprove anything he said.
I met Bobby after he came to Iceland. His existence was a very lonely one. He gradually, in Iceland like everywhere else, he alienated people with his behavior.
I had one huge safe.
We just walked around the pond downtown Reykjavik and we talked and we had coffee together and then I met him a few times when I ran into him on restaurants, etc.
The U.S. didn't give a damn what their opinions were anymore. Their role was over. Now the bomb belonged to the government. You understand?
This is.
And they were shocked. They didn't believe it.
Listen to me. If we are going to have a fucking conversation, polite, then this cannot be a monologue. Polite. He could not tear himself from the topic of the evil nature of the Jews and the evil nature of the United States or the evil nature of nuclear power. He talked about this relentlessly, and you couldn't pull him out of that discussion. It was not just that he was talking about it. It was also the obsessive, compulsive nature of the discussion. Relentless nature of it. The last time I ran into him, I turned him away from my table because I had gotten enough of him. Most of us think within relatively narrow boundaries. But occasional individuals manage to get outside of the box. Those are the people who make new discoveries. Those are the creative people. But occasionally, it is difficult to get back into the box.
The king moves, takes the queen.
His genius
Stick a knight here.
and his illness are joined at the hip.
Now I took the rook.
I don't think that Bobby could have been as creative, as extraordinary, without being extraordinary in other aspects. And that aspect we call a disease.
So the whole game's collapsing here. It's very resigned. I don't consider myself to be a genius at chess. I consider myself more to be a genius who just happens to play chess. You understand? So I could be doing I could have done and I can do any number of other things, you know? I always wanted to write some song. I was telling Evans, Larry Evans, this back in the 60s, I remember. I said, I listen to all these songs, and I wish I could write that, but I try to write something, I try to think of something, and nothing comes out. And he says, yeah, because you haven't lived. And I started thinking about it. He's right. My text library, all my other regular library, all my personal correspondence, all my chess sets, all kind of stuff. Everything is stolen. Everything. All my chess library.
He died from a psychiatric illness. He did not want to accept treatment for benign prostatic hypertrophy.
He refused dialysis, I understand. Probably could have prolonged his life if he'd taken it.
I was able to get him a photograph of Regina and Joan to have with him, which is what he had with him in the hospital when he died.
Reportedly, Fischer's last words were, "Nothing is so healing as the human touch."
The former world champion of chess, Bobby Fischer, has died. His career reached its height during matches with his nemesis, Boris Spassky, back in 1972.
American chess superstar Bobby Fischer has just died.
Former world chess champion Bobby Fischer has died, considered by many as the greatest chess player of all time.
Bobby Fischer dead at the age of 64.
Just his games, that's his monument. His games.
If you love an art, let's say you love painting, imagine if Picasso had died after only 5 years of work. All the rest of his works had never appeared. This was a tragedy for the whole chess world.
He did it all by himself. He penetrated the secrets of chess in this shabby Brooklyn apartment. He was the best player who ever lived.
Bobby Fischer, sound roll 3. Right. Speed. Bobby, you've been playing this game since you were 6 years old, and playing it very seriously shortly after the age of 6. Did all this concentration to the exclusion of other activities, did this bother you? Do you think this deprived you of anything growing up?
Maybe, yeah, to some extent, yeah.
Like what?
Well, it would have been better, a little more balanced, yeah. Maybe, a little more rounded, but what can you do?
In New York City, summer's sweat, and the boys are rolling their cigarettes. The girls are singing into their phones, but Bobby Fischer is all alone. Parks are buzzing with the birds and the bees. Friends are hugging in twos and threes. Lovers are kissing and exchanging their rings, but Bobby Fischer's playing 18 Kings. They're screaming and crying at the YMCA. Bobby, Bobby, why'd you go away? His mother is whispering wide and low. Bobby, Bobby, where did you go?
Across the universe, the seeds grow and the planets burst open with the birth of new celestials, who themselves go on to create new suns and galaxies. But the universe is a constant exchange of energy, and the creation of a celestial comes at great cost. For the seeds to grow, they require energy, which comes from intelligent life. And to ensure intelligent life flourishes, Arishem created the deviants to protect that life from predators. Over time, however, the deviants evolved and began to attack the intelligent life they were meant to protect. So Arishem learned from his mistakes and created new protectors. This time they were not organic creatures capable of evolution, but instead synthetic ones created in the World Forge, nearly immortal, sentient beings known as Eternals. They were built for the singular task of protecting intelligent life from deviants. But few know the truth, that they protect life just so it can one day be destroyed along with their planet in the emergence of a new celestial. After each mission, the Eternals have their memories wiped, so they approach each planet as though it's their first. Blissfully unaware, they are shepherding it to its own destruction. As Arishem puts it, an infinite cycle of creation and destruction. One day, a seed for the celestial Tiamat will be placed inside Earth, and if left unfettered, will destroy it, along with humanity itself. Among the Celestials, there was one who was different from the rest, Ego. Unlike the others, he was not born inside a planet. He simply, one day, existed. He learned to manipulate matter and created a planet around himself. He also explored the universe by creating avatars mimicking sentient creatures. One day, he'll choose a human avatar. Around 2,500,000 BC, a meteorite made of nearly indestructible vibranium struck the continent of Africa and affected the plant life. When the time of men came, 5 tribes settled there and called it Wakanda. They were in constant war with each other until a warrior shaman was guided by the panther goddess Bast to consume the heart-shaped herb. Part of that affected plant life. It gave him superhuman strength, speed, and instincts, making him king and the first Black Panther. 4 of the tribes agreed to live under his rule, while the Jabari decided to remain independent. Using vibranium, Wakanda will develop technologies far more advanced than any other nation, and when the world is engulfed in wars, Wakanda will choose to remain hidden, keeping their knowledge and resources to themselves. Elsewhere in the universe, Ego has been busy, using his avatars to visit different planets in search of purpose. He's met many species on many planets, but found them all disappointing. Finally, he realizes his true purpose: expansion, as in expanding himself by planting seeds in planets across the universe. Seeds which will grow into more of him, eradicating all life and replacing it with more ego. In 5000 BC, Arishem sends a group of Eternals to Earth, just in time to stop a deviant attack in Mesopotamia. Their leader, Ajak, is the only one of them who knows the truth of their mission, that they are there to ensure Tiamat's emergence. The rest focus only on protecting and helping humanity thrive. Elsewhere in the universe, Asgard thrives too. In addition to its place in our solar system, Earth is one of 9 planets, or realms, linked across the universe on branches of Yggdrasil, the world's tree. Asgard is the most powerful of the 9, and home to beings who became known as the gods of Norse mythology. In 2988 BC, they face a dangerous enemy, the Dark Elves. These elves are said to have dwelled in the darkness before the universe began. Now, they seek to restore that darkness by eradicating the 9 realms, and they can do it by using the Reality Stone. Somehow, the elves obtained it and converted the Infinity Stone into something called ether. Then, they waited until the convergence, a phenomenon where the 9 realms come into alignment once every 5,000 years. By firing the ether at the point of convergence, the power will pierce through every realm, amplifying with each, and finally, destroying them all. But the Asgardians are formidable, and King Bor leads them to victory, then hides the ether on a distant world to ensure it is never weaponized again. Elsewhere, in another dimension, there is a realm called Ta Lo, with vast cities rich with culture and history. But their peace and prosperity is upended by the Dweller in Darkness. He attacks with his army and eats every soul in his path, growing stronger with each. The army heads for the gate which leads to Earth, so Ta Lo's strongest warriors fight to keep them from escaping the dimension. But they aren't strong enough, until the Great Protector joins the fight. With her power, they push the Dweller and his army back, then lock them behind the Dark Gate. The survivors settle into a small village by the gate, where they dedicate themselves to guarding it, using magic granted to them by the Great Protector. Around 600 BC, in Asgard, King Bor's son Odin has inherited the throne, and Odin is a ruthless king. He has a child named Hela, the goddess of death, and with her as his executioner, they conquer the 9 realms. In 575 BC, the Eternals protect Babylon from deviants and decide to settle there for a while. But protecting and living among humans has had an effect on Ajak. She sees something special in them, and even suggests they be allowed to live. Arishem won't hear it. Humanity must be sacrificed for the emergence, so billions of new lives can be created elsewhere in the universe. Druig has also become attached to people, though he detests their proclivity for violence, and often uses mind control to enforce peace. But he is warned against this. The Eternals are only there to stop deviants, and they are forbidden from involving themselves in any other conflicts, tempting as it may be. Icarus has also been changed by their experiences on Earth, discovering a love not for humanity, but for another Eternal, Circe. He's harbored these feelings for some time, but he's always had faith in Arishem, and that was enough. Ajak, however, tells him that it's okay. He can perform his duties and still live a life. So he confesses his feelings, and Circe feels the same way. The millennium turns, and Odin's conquest of the 9 realms comes to an end. He realizes that Asgard's violent ways are wrong. Instead, he chooses to become benevolent and peaceful. But his daughter Hela's thirst for blood remains, and she refuses to stop, forcing Odin to imprison her. In 400 AD, Circe and Icarus marry, though Icarus hides from her an awful truth. After leaving Babylon, Ajak confided in him the true purpose of their mission, but he knows Circe, who shares Ajak's love for humanity, could never accept that truth, so he keeps it to himself. Near the turn of the millennium, Odin has a son named Thor. He calls the boy his firstborn, and does his best to ensure that Hela, the goddess of death and his true firstborn, is erased from history, even hiding her existence from his son, for now. Soon after, Earth, or Midgard as it's known in the Nine Realms, is attacked by frost giants from the realm of Jotunheim. But Odin and his army come to the rescue, defeating the frost giants, and he returns to Asgard with two new additions. First is the Casket of Ancient Winters, the source of the frost giants' power. And second is a baby boy. King Laufey of Jotunheim had a son, but abandoned him after the battle. Rather than watch the child die, Odin brought him back to Asgard, named him Loki, and raised him as his own. Over the years, Loki will grow jealous of his older brother Thor, jealous of the adulation he receives from Odin, and jealous that Thor is destined to inherit his father's throne. As one war ends, another begins. In another part of the universe, there is a species of blue, humanoid creatures named Kree. Their culture is militaristic, and they rule a fascist empire from their home planet, Apollo. But one race resists their rule, the Skrulls, humanoid reptilians with shape-shifting abilities, and their resistance plants the seeds for a war that will last centuries. Around the same time, the Kree and Nova Empire enter their own 1,000-year war. Meanwhile, in China, Xu Wenwu discovers the Ten Rings, an ancient artifact of unknown origins. While wearing them, he is granted immortality and immense power, which he uses to become a conqueror, leading an army he calls the Ten Rings. 400 years later, Odin brings an important artifact to Earth, the Tesseract, a cube-shaped vessel containing the Space Stone, one of the 6 Infinity Stones. Somehow it came into Odin's possession, and for reasons unknown, he brought it to Earth, where it is hidden at a church in Norway. In 1521, the Eternals complete their mission, killing what they believe is the last of the Deviants. But Druig especially feels anything but victorious. Perhaps they protected humankind from one monster, but they have failed to protect humankind from itself. War rages, and with the blink of an eye, Druig could just control them all. He could just make them stop. But it's not allowed. Meanwhile, Thena suffers panic attacks, causing her to lash out violently. The only cure is to wipe her memories clean. But Thena does not want to lose herself, and neither does Gilgamesh. He promises to take responsibility for her. He will stay with her, and if the worst happens, if she becomes too violent to contain, he will kill her himself. The Eternals will later learn the true reason for her affliction. Memories of their past missions are creeping into her mind. Memories of death and destruction at the altar of emergence. Despite these difficult circumstances, Ajak announces that with their mission complete, they are free to go. Free to discover their own purpose in the world and live their own lives. In 1571, as Spanish colonizers invade Mayan civilization, smallpox spreads among the indigenous people. However, one village is saved when a shaman has a vision. It leads him to an underwater plant growing from vibranium. Apparently, the meteorite which formed Wakanda was not the only one. And like the heart-shaped herb, this plant also has strange effects on those who ingest it. The village people are cured, but the plant turns them blue and alters their breathing so they can only survive underwater. So that's where they go, forming the underwater city of Talocan. One woman, Fen, was pregnant at the time she ingested the plant, and her son is born a mutant. Unlike the others in the tribe, his skin is not blue, and he retains the ability to breathe above water. In addition, his aging process is slowed tremendously, and wings on his ankles allow him to fly. One day, when his mother passes, the boy takes her body above water to their hometown, where she hoped to be buried. There, he finds his people enslaved by colonizers. He kills them all, and one man, with his dying breaths, calls the boy Niño Sin Amor, or the boy without love, and the mutant twists the phrase to adopt a new name. Instead of Niño Sin Amor, he calls simply Namor. From then on, he leads his people and helps them stay hidden from evil in the outside world. And should their secret ever be at risk, he will respond without mercy. In 1693, a witch named Agatha Harkness is tied to a pyre by her own mother and coven. They attempt to execute her for practicing dark magic, but when they unleash their power, she absorbs it all, leaving nothing behind, not even their lives. With the coven dead, she lives and continues her quest to obtain the most powerful magic. In 1933, Hitler rises to power. In 1935, he sends Johann Schmidt, the head of the Nazis' research division Hydra, to kidnap Dr. Abraham Erskine, who has been working to develop a serum to enhance a person's abilities, a super soldier serum. Ostensibly, this is to support the Nazi regime, but Schmidt has his own interest in the serum. He's heard legends of an artifact left behind by the gods which only a superior man can obtain. That artifact is the Tesseract, and the god who left it is Odin. In 1940, hoping to become that superior man of legend, Schmidt forces Erskine to use the drug on him. It does enhance his abilities, but also disfigures him. His hideous appearance earns him the moniker Red Skull. A couple of days later, Erskine is rescued by Peggy Carter, an MI5 agent recruited to America's Strategic Scientific Reserve, or SSR, their answer to Hydra. They quickly enlist Erskine's help, along with their other recent recruit, Howard Stark. After impressing the world with the technology he developed through his own Stark Industries, Howard was recruited by the SSR's head, Chester Phillips. In March 1942, he finds the Tesseract at that church in Norway. Over the next year, he and his lead scientist, Dr. Arnim Zola, will run tests on the mysterious artifact and use it to develop powerful weapons. That same year, two beings from another dimension, Aisha and Najma, search for a way home. They are from the Nord dimension, but were exiled here along with 3 others. And in the Temple of the Ten Rings, in British-occupied India, they find a magic bangle, which may offer the power they need. But they're forced to separate when British soldiers attack the temple. Aisha leaves with the bangle, promising Najma they will soon reunite. Meanwhile, as Red Skull works on weaponizing the Space Stone-containing Tesseract, the SSR is hard at work on Project Rebirth, an initiative to harness Erskine's super soldier serum for good. All they need is the right person to take it, and one day, Erskine finds him. At the first Stark Expo in 1943, he meets Steve Rogers, a young man unfit to serve due to his physical stature and plethora of health issues. But he has tremendous spirit. He's been rejected many times over, but every time he spots a recruitment tent, Rogers attempts to enlist again. It's his duty to fight for his country, and no matter how many people tell him no, he will not give up. Erskine recruits Rogers to Project Rebirth, where he is one of many candidates for the serum. Most eclipse Rogers in brawn, but he more than makes up for it in his problem-solving skills, bravery, and most importantly, heart. Erskine tells Rogers more about the serum. It amplifies what is inside a man, hence Schmidt's transformation into Red Skull. But in Steve, he sees compassion. On his way to the procedure, Steve and Peggy Carter get to know each other and relate over the many doors shut to them. Steve for his stature, and Peggy for being a woman in the 40s. It also quickly becomes obvious Steve doesn't have much experience with women, not even dancing. Peggy asks what he's waiting for, and he answers, the right partner. Soon it's time for the procedure, and it works. He enters the chamber his scrawny self, and comes out looking like a superhero. A superhero who soon takes on the name Captain America. But after the experiment, a Hydra spy steals the rest of the serum and kills Erskine. As he dies in Steve's arms, the doctor has no ability to speak, so he only taps Steve's chest, reminding him why he was chosen and what he must never lose. The new and improved Rogers chases down the spy and catches him, but not before he destroys the serum and chews a cyanide pill. With Erskine dead and the serum gone, Phillips' hope for an army of super soldiers is gone. and all he's left with is one man, one untrained man. So, rather than send Steve into battle, Phillips turns Captain America into a figurehead to sell war bonds. Until Rogers hears the news, much of the 107th Infantry was captured by Hydra, including his best friend James Barnes, or Bucky. They're 30 miles behind enemy lines, too dangerous for Phillips to risk a rescue mission. Steve finally learns that sometimes doing the right thing and following orders aren't the same thing. He heads into enemy territory alone and comes back with the 107th Infantry Regiment. Though, while in captivity, Bucky was given a variant of the super soldier serum as part of Hydra experiments. Returning home a hero, Steve Rogers grows closer with Peggy, though his time with her is limited because he has a mission. Rogers forms a small group dubbed the Howling Commandos, intent on taking down Hydra. Over the next year, Captain America, armed with a vibranium shield courtesy of Stark, leads his Howling Commandos, taking down one Hydra base after another. But on one mission, Rogers loses his best friend Bucky, who falls from a train by the Danube River. But at least they manage to capture Dr. Zola, and by interrogating him, learn the location of Hydra's main base. Captain America and the Howling Commandos arrive just in time to foil Red Skull's plot to drop massive bombs across the U.S. Only problem? In order to stop it, Rogers is forced to sacrifice himself by crashing Red Skull's plane into the ocean. On his way down, he and Peggy setting a date for that dance. Rogers will miss that date. He survives the crash, but ends up frozen underwater, leaving the world to think he's dead. As for Red Skull, he learns not to meddle with powers beyond his control. The Space Stone inside the Tesseract casts him out to a barren planet called Vormir. There, he is made the guardian of the Soul Stone, awaiting the arrival of any who seek it. The Space Stone, meanwhile, falls to the ocean floor inside the Tesseract. In the aftermath, Howard Stark searches for Rogers, but only manages to find the Tesseract. Meanwhile, Bucky is found, but not by the good guys. Thanks to the super soldier serum, he survived his fall at the Danube River. He's discovered by the Soviets, and soon, Dr. Arnim Zola tracks him down. How did the good doctor escape U.S. custody? He didn't. He was recruited as part of Operation Paperclip, an initiative to recruit German scientists, engineers, and technicians after the fall of the Nazi regime. He and the Soviets give Bucky a metal arm to replace one he lost in the fall, they wipe his memory, and they brainwash him, turning him into one of their winter soldiers, assassins who are kept frozen between missions and only activated when they need someone dead. By 1947, Aisha, still exiled from the Nord Dimension, has taken refuge on lands owned by a man named Hassan. In the last 5 years, they've fallen in love and had a daughter named Sana. So when Najma finds her in the hopes of returning to the Nord Dimension, Aisha is not interested. She'd rather stay in this world with her new family. In August, during the partition of India, she gives her daughter the bangle and tries to flee with her family to Pakistan. But Najma catches up with them. So Aisha leaves her husband and daughter to face Najma alone. And Najma stabs her, fatally wounding her for her betrayal. As she slowly bleeds to death, Aisha notices that Sana has gotten separated from her father. Too weak to help herself, Aisha calls on the powers of Noor for help, and help arrives, in the form of her great-granddaughter from the future, Kamala Khan. She gives Kamala a photo of her family and begs her to save Sana. Kamala acts quickly, using the bangle to summon a trail of stars, which leads Sana back to her father on the train. Then, Kamala returns to her time, 2025. In the aftermath of World War II, the Strategic Scientific Reserve evolves into S.H.I.E.L.D. But behind the curtains, Dr. Arnim Zola rebuilds Hydra like a parasite within the organization, a process helped along by his secret assassin, the Winter Soldier. Meanwhile, the U.S. military tries to recreate the success they had with Steve Rogers. With the scientist who invented the serum, Dr. Erskine, dead, they're desperate. So they experiment with reckless abandon. Black soldiers are administered experimental serum without their knowledge. All die except one, Isaiah Bradley. But to cover up the unethical experiments, Bradley is imprisoned, and his wife Faith is told that he's dead. While in captivity, Bradley is continually experimented on, and his letters to Faith go undelivered. He will never see her again, and she will die believing him dead. In 1963, Howard Stark has a major breakthrough thanks to his studies of the Tesseract. The artifact somehow produces massive amounts of energy. By researching it, with help from Russian scientist Anton Vanko, they developed the first arc reactor, a safer alternative to nuclear for large amounts of clean energy. However, while Stark sees it as a way to help the world, Vanko sees it only as a way to profit. In 1967, Stark catches him selling their secrets to Russia and gets him deported. Vanko returns to the Soviet Union, but without Stark's help, he can't recreate the technology. So the Soviets exile him to Siberia, where he has a son named Ivan. Over the years, he will pour his knowledge into Ivan, but also his resentment and hatred for Howard Stark, something that will eventually extend to Howard's son, Tony, who will be born in May of 1970. Stark is not the only one to achieve a major scientific breakthrough in the 60s. There is also scientist Hank Pym. He discovers the Pym particle, a formula to change the distance between atoms, to shrink things. He uses the technology to create the Ant-Man suit, which allows one to shrink while retaining their strength. He also develops the EMP communication device, allowing him to telepathically control ants. Using the technology, he becomes a SHIELD agent known as Ant-Man. In 1972, Dr. Zola is diagnosed with terminal illness. His body cannot be saved, but his mind can. He uploads it to an array of servers at Camp Lehigh, New Jersey, to live on as artificial intelligence. Across the Hudson River, somewhere in Hell's Kitchen, it's around this time that a 12-year-old Wilson Fisk kills his father. After years of abuse, the boy is pushed too far. Bill tries to hurt his mother again, so Wilson picks up a hammer. Once he puts it through his father's thick skull, he and his mother spend the next week disposing of the body in the river, one piece at a time. In 1978, the celestial Ego uses his human avatar to visit Earth. The purpose of the visit is to plant his seed, but he also happens to fall in love with Meredith Quill. Over the next 2 years, he will visit 3 more times to see her. But on that third visit, he has a disturbing realization. He's become distracted. So, he removes the distraction. He plants a malignant tumor in her brain, a terminal cancer, giving her an 8-year expiration date. Ego leaves the planet, and in 1980, Meredith gives birth to their son Peter, a son she will playfully call her little Star-Lord. Though Meredith may have been Ego's first true love, and first time mating with a human, there were hundreds of other females before her, from all manner of species. Facing his quest to overwrite all life in the universe with himself, Ego realized it's a big task for one Celestial, so he sought to sire another, by mating with humanoid females across the universe. He hired Yondu, a member of the space pirate syndicate known as Ravagers, to abduct those children and bring them to him. But each was a disappointment. All were mortal, and none carried the celestial gene. So, Ego killed them all, slowly amassing a tomb beneath the surface of his planet. In the mid-80s, Earth is visited again by a scientist who calls himself the High Evolutionary. Obsessed with creating the perfect society, populated by perfect creatures, he has a look around and finds much to admire in Earth's art and cultures. But he despises humanity's proclivity for violence and bigotry. He leaves with a goal of creating a new planet, including all the good he saw on Earth, but none of the bad. And to populate the new world, he takes various animals with him for cybernetic and genetic experimentation. Included among them are raccoons. In 1987, Dr. Hank Pym is still working for S.H.I.E.L.D. as the Ant-Man. He is now joined by his wife, Janet Van Dyne, who uses her own wasp suit. And when a Soviet missile is launched at the United States, they are sent to stop it. But they're unable to cut through its solid titanium shell, meaning the only way in is to shrink between the molecules. A dangerous prospect. Going subatomic means entering the quantum realm, a place where time and space are irrelevant, a place where you shrink for eternity with no return. But Hank knows what must be done. But unfortunately, his suit is damaged and he can't make the trip. So, Janet doesn't hesitate. She shuts off her regulator and goes subatomic. The bomb is stopped, but Hank returns home from the mission alone. He tell his daughter Hope that her mother is gone, though he covers up the truth, telling her that she died in a plane crash. In 1988, Peter Quill's time comes. He has grown into a child of the 80s and inherited his mother's taste in music. In fact, she put some of her favorite songs on a mixtape for him called Awesome Mix Volume 1, which he plays through a Walkman she also gave him. They are a small comfort as he sits in the hospital with his mother in the other room, on her deathbed. As Ego's tumor does its work, Meredith gives her son a wrapped present before dying. And as with all his previous children, Ego sends Yondu to kidnap Peter. But this time is different. Yondu has learned the truth, that Ego is killing every child who disappoints him. So this time, instead of leading the boy to slaughter, Yondu keeps him and raises him as his own. In 1989, Dr. Hank Pym's time with S.H.I.E.L.D. comes to an end, when he discovers that they, led by Howard Stark, have been trying to recreate the Pym particle, something he locked away after losing his wife, because he knew it was too dangerous. So he resigns and locks away his research again. That same year, a hero is born. Carol Danvers and Maria Rambeau are in the U.S. Air Force. Despite their unequivocal skill, being female has disqualified them from flying in combat. But they found a way to do something that mattered anyway, piloting test flights for Dr. Wendy Lawson and the Lightspeed engine she's developing. One day, during a test flight, Lawson provides Danvers with coordinates to her laboratory. But before they arrive, their plane is shot down by Kree. Realizing her time is limited, the badly wounded Lawson reveals her identity. She is not human. Her real name is Mar-Vell, and she is also Kree. Although it's been 1,000 years, her species still fights the Skrulls. But recently she learned the truth. She's been fighting for the bad guys. The Kree have brought Skrulls to the brink of extinction just for refusing the Kree's rule. So she defected, hoping to build a Lightspeed engine that could bring the few remaining Skrulls to a new home, far from the Kree's reach. To do it, she would need the power of the Space Stone, contained inside the Tesseract, located on Earth. So she came here disguised as Dr. Lawson and harnessed the power of the Tesseract to create her engine. Unfortunately, the Kree have now found her. After divulging the truth, Mar-Vell begs Danvers to remember the coordinates for her lab, then tries to shoot the engine before the Kree get their hands on it. But Commander Yon-Rogg shoots her first, so Danvers finishes the job for her. She shoots the engine, releasing a burst of Space Stone energy, which is absorbed into her genetic code. This gives her tremendous power, which one day will allow her to become Captain Marvel. For now, it knocks her unconscious. Yon-Rogg takes advantage of the opportunity by bringing her back to Hala. They install an implant to inhibit her powers and her memory. Then they lie, telling her that she is not human, but that she is Kree, and that the implant is what gives her power. For the next 6 years, she will believe it, and she will continue to fight the unjust war Mar-Vell tried so hard to stop. On December 16, 1991, Tony Stark disappoints his father again. Although his accomplishments are many, including graduating MIT at 17, Tony has done little since, and Howard knows he has great potential. The truth is that Howard loves his son, but he has a hard time showing it, and today is no different. When his parents leave, Tony doesn't say goodbye, and he'll never get the chance, because that night they are killed by the Winter Soldier. It seems that in recent years, Howard managed to recreate the Super Soldier Serum. Hydra learned of this, so they ordered their assassin to acquire it and leave no witnesses. After Howard's death, his business partner, Obadiah Stane, will take over as interim CEO, but only briefly, because after a few months, the 21-year-old Tony Stark will inherit his father's legacy, and he will usher in a new era for Stark Industries, creating smarter, more powerful weapons, the likes of which the world has never seen. Meanwhile, there is trouble in Wakanda. T'Chaka is the current king and Black Panther. In keeping with long-held custom, he keeps Wakanda hidden from the world, along with their knowledge and vibranium. But that does not sit well with his brother, N'Jobu. As a member of the War Dogs, Wakanda's intelligence service, N'Jobu is one of the few people who have spent time in the outside world, and what he's seen has left him disappointed. People just like them, oppressed and struggling, while Wakanda sits comfortably behind invisible force fields. He called for global uprising, fueled by Wakandan vibranium. But of course, T'Chaka upheld Wakanda's isolationist policies and refused. So N'Jobu took matters into his own hands. He recruited arms dealer Ulysses Klaue to infiltrate Wakanda and steal vibranium. The attack was messy, and many Wakandans were killed. In 1992, N'Jobu's role in the attack is discovered when he's betrayed by his friend James, who reveals that he, too, is Wakandan. His real name is Zuri, and just like N'Jobu, he's a war dog. After Zuri reports what he's seen, T'Chaka comes from Wakanda to arrest his brother, but N'Jobu refuses to go quietly. He pulls a gun on Zuri, forcing T'Chaka to take him down. Having killed his own brother, King T'Chaka covers up the truth by lying, telling Wakanda that N'Jobu disappeared, and he abandons N'Jobu's son in America, a boy named Eric. Finding his father dead with panther claws in his chest, Eric knows it was T'Chaka who killed him. The boy inherits his father's dream of global uprising and decides that he will train himself to become a killing machine. So one day, he can visit his father's homeland of Wakanda and claim his revenge. A couple of years later, a 9-year-old Matthew Murdock loses his sight. He spots an elderly man in the path of an oncoming truck and pushes him out of the way. The truck goes sideways, spilling its toxic chemicals. Some get in Matt's eyes, robbing him of sight. But soon, he learns that it has also enhanced his other senses, including sound. Now he can hear so much more, things his father would rather he didn't. Battling Jack Murdock is a boxer who often loses, but never by knockout, because no matter how hard they hit him, he always gets back up. But in the end, he does lose, and thanks to his new and improved ears, Matt learns why. The fights are fixed. Jack gets paid to take the fall. The big match against Carl Creed is no different. Until Jack's son reminds him of what he once said, Murdochs always get back up. Jack decides he wants Matty to hear people cheer for his old man, just this once. First he makes arrangements. He asks his friend to bet on him so Matt will have some money, and he calls Sister Maggie at St. Agnes Orphanage. With his affairs settled, Jack enters the ring. Matt does hear the cheers when his father wins, and he hears the gunshot that kills him, punishment for betraying his employers. After that, Matt ends up at the orphanage where Maggie looks after him. Of course she would do this for any child who lost their parents. But Matt is special, because Matt is her son, the product of a brief romance with Jack ending in severe postpartum depression, and a return to the church. Maggie said her vows, while she and Father Lantom agreed to keep her sin a secret from Matt. But soon, they aren't sure how to care for Matt. His condition is getting worse. He's in so much pain, and no one understands why, not the doctors or clergy. So they find someone who has done great work with special children before, a man named Stick. Like Matt, he is blind, and he knows what he is going through. The boy's heightened senses are flooding him with sensory overload. He hears everything. Coughs, fights, or cats a few blocks away. He can also sense things, where they are and when they move. Stick teaches him that these are gifts. He teaches him how to focus, using ice cream as an example, showing Matt how to taste every ingredient and where they came from. And he teaches him to fight. But Matt does not know the real reason Stick trains him. It is not out of kindness or the check the church wrote him. It's because he needs warriors. There is a place called Kunlun, a city in another dimension, where the elders once studied how to harness their chi, the energy of life itself, to heal. But 5 heretics wanted more, immortality. They were banished, and for the last centuries, or possibly millennia, they have sustained their lives with sinister power, continuing their search for immortality, killing anyone who gets in their way. Stick is part of an organization called the Chaste, formed by the survivor of a village massacred by the Hand. And if they are going to stop the Hand, they will need fighters. In Matthew Murdoch, Stick sees potential for one. That same year, Carol Danvers returns to Earth, though not intentionally. She still believes herself Kree, and still looks up to Mar-Vell's killer Yon-Rogg as a mentor. But meanwhile, the Skrulls, led by General Talos, have been searching for Mar-Vell's energy core so they can finish the work she started and reach their new home. Their search brings them to Danvers. They capture her and search her mind for coordinates or any clue for the energy core's whereabouts. They find memories of Earth, so that's where they go. But she wakes up. Thinking the Skrulls her enemy, she fights them off, escapes, and crash lands in a blockbuster, which catches the attention of S.H.I.E.L.D. Nick Fury works with her to discover her past, and they find an old friend, Maria Rambeau. Seeing Maria and her daughter Monica, who always looked up to her, helps unlock hidden memories. She remembers the truth. So, when Talos arrives, Danvers is ready to listen. He tells her about their search for the core, and how Mar-Vell was trying to help them. She believes him and agrees to help. Danvers recalls the coordinates Lawson gave her, and realizes it points to a laboratory in orbit around Earth. Though before they set off, Monica picks out some new colors for her, to replace the Kree look she now denounces. In the floating lab, they find the energy core, the Tesseract, and they find Skrull refugees Mar-Vell was keeping safe, including Talos' family. The happy reunion is cut short when Yon-Rogg arrives with a squad of Kree. They take the Tesseract and subdue Danvers, until she realizes that the implant on her neck has been inhibiting her powers. Her entire life she's been held back and knocked down, but every time she's gotten back up. This time is no different. She destroys the implant, and with her full powers unleashed, the Kree are no match. Danvers sends Yon-Rogg home with a message. She's coming to end their war and their lives. In the aftermath, Fury's left eye is scratched by Mar-Vell's pet Flerken, leaving a wound that will never fully heal. And Danvers leaves Earth to help the Skrulls find their new home, though she leaves Fury with a pager to reach her in case of emergency, and leaves the Tesseract in his care. Back in his office, Fury speaks with Agent Coulson about how this experience has opened his eyes, well, his eye, to the level of potential threats that are out there. On an intergalactic scale, S.H.I.E.L.D. is not enough to protect them. So he gets to work, drafting something he calls the Protector Initiative, to create a team of humankind's most abled individuals. Though, going through Carol Danvers' file, he notices her old call sign, Avenger, and he likes the sound of it. Thus, the Avengers Initiative is born. And as Danvers promised to Yon-Rogg, she heads to Hala personally. To stop the war, she destroys the Supreme Intelligence, the AI which runs their planet. In Hell's Kitchen, Matt Murdock's training comes to an abrupt end. To be a warrior means to be alone. Friends and relationships are distractions. One day, Matt gives Stick a gift, a bracelet made from the wrapper of that ice cream Stick bought him the day they met. The first one anyone bought Matt since his dad died. The sentimental gift is proof enough that Matthew is no warrior. Stick announces that their training is at an end. And Mac is not the only child who suddenly finds himself alone. In Ohio, there is also the 10-year-old Natasha Romanoff. She has not had an easy life. As an infant, she was deemed to have strong genes, so she was bought from her father by General Drakov to be trained in the Red Room, a brutal Soviet-Russian program which turns young girls into expert assassins called Black Widows. And a healthy dose of brainwashing ensures loyalty. Her mother was not okay with this. She relentlessly searched and fought to bring Natasha home, but her efforts only put her in Drakov's crosshairs and got her killed. For the last 3 years, Natasha has been posing as a daughter and sister. The Red Room had assigned Melina Vostokov and Alexei Shostakov on an underground mission to infiltrate a SHIELD location in Ohio to steal brain research. This would take time, so they were ordered to pose as a married couple and given 2 daughters to maintain the ruse, Natasha Romanoff and another girl named Yelena Belova. Alexei has found the mission painfully boring, considering his background. In the Cold War, he was administered a super soldier serum created by the Soviets, turning him into the Red Guardian, their answer to Captain America. He enjoyed the role, and would much prefer to don that costume in battle over the suit and tie he's been forced to wear, posing as a SHIELD employee, biding his time. Finally, in 1995, he obtains the brain research, and their family is dissolved. This is hard on Natasha, who was aware it was all fake, but still enjoyed them as the only family she ever knew. But it's especially hard on Yelena. She was 3 when the mission began, and came to believe her family was real. Now, she will be put through the same brutal training as Natasha, training which only 1 in 20 children survive. In Argentina, a ghost is born. Elias Starr used to work for SHIELD, until Hank Pym fired and discredited him. So he continued quantum research on his own, and without Hank's oversight, took bigger risks, which gets him and his wife killed, while inflicting his daughter with something called molecular disequilibrium. Every cell in her body is constantly torn apart and stitched back together over and over. It's painful, but also grants her the ability to phase through matter. One of Hank's colleagues, Bill Foster, hears about it and brings her into SHIELD. He tries to keep her safe, but SHIELD sees opportunity in her. Over time, they will build her a containment suit to control her power and use her abilities to their own ends, all with the promise of delivering a cure that will never come. By 1996, Xu Wenwu has wielded the 10 rings for nearly 1,000 years, and his army has evolved into a global criminal organization. But his thirst for conquest has not lessened. He wants more, and he believes he'll find it in the legendary city of Ta Lo. He seeks out the city, but finds it surrounded by a magical, shifting forest maze. It kills his men, but he continues on his own, until he finds Ying Li. He demands she take him to the city. She refuses, and Wenwu attacks. For the first time in a millennium, he finds himself outmatched. Using the magic of the Great Protector, she's able to stand against him, and even take his rings. At first, he's impressed, and soon, he's in love. And soon that love will convince him to put away the 10 rings, and instead, start a family. As one family begins, another is dissolved. On the planet of the Zehobarians, a young girl named Gamora loses her parents to a massacre led by Thanos. When Thanos notices her ferocity, fighting off his soldiers, he takes an interest and teaches her about balance. Many years ago, his home planet of Titan suffered overpopulation, so he made a radical suggestion. If, at random, they executed half the population, the remaining resources would be enough for the other half to flourish. This way, rather than everyone dying, half would survive. They scoffed at the insane suggestion and cast him out. As Thanos predicted, resources dwindled, and they all died. In the time since, he's become convinced the entire universe will suffer the same fate, unless half of all living beings are killed. So Thanos amassed an army, and has been going planet to planet, executing half the population on each. Now, he's come for the Zehobarians. Half are killed, including Gamora's parents. But Thanos keeps her alive, raising her as a daughter and one of his fiercest assassins. Later, he will adopt another girl named Nebula, who becomes a sister and eventual rival to Gamora. 2 years after Talos was reunited with his family, the Skrulls' search for a new home continues. Nick Fury aids in the process and meets a new recruit. A Skrull named Vara introduces him to a child named Gravik. His parents were killed by Kree, and he escaped from behind enemy lines on his own. He would be a valuable addition to the cause. Gravik listens with the other Skrulls as Fury and Talos make a pitch. As shapeshifters, they could be extremely useful to Fury as spies. If they help him, becoming his secret spy network, he promises he will help them. He and Carol Danvers will find them a new home. You keep your word, I'll keep mine, Fury says, and Gravik takes those words to heart. The following year, Fury and Vara have grown close, and recently, she picked a new face that sealed the deal. He is taken with her, and she, him. The two decide to start dating. On March 30th, 1999, the European country of Sokovia is embroiled in turmoil. In an effort to tamp it down, American forces launch an air raid. Before the bombs hit, the Maximoff family do their best to enjoy another night of television, unaware of the doom that will soon reign from above. Most nights, they watch shows imported from America, everything from I Love Lucy to Malcolm in the Middle. Tonight, 10-year-old Wanda Maximoff picks her favorite, The Dick Van Dyke Show. But they're interrupted when a mortar shell strikes their home, killing Wanda and her parents. The two children cower under a bed as the second shell hits, but this one fails to detonate. So they wait, afraid that the slightest movement will set it off. For 2 days, they wait, and they stare at the name written on the bomb, the name of the man they will blame for destroying their family. Stark. Years later, Wanda will learn that it was not luck which prevented the second bomb from detonating. It was her, subconsciously using latent chaos magic, an ability she was born with. And Wanda Maximoff is not the only enemy Tony Stark makes that year. On New Year's Eve, Aldrich Killian approaches Stark at a party to try and recruit him for his think tank, Advanced Idea Mechanics, or AIM. But Tony is more interested in Maya Hansen, so he lies to Aldrich, promising to meet him on the roof in 5 minutes. Aldrich waits on the roof. For the first 20 minutes, he actually believes Tony will show. The next hour, he thought about jumping. He looked up at the city filled with people who didn't and would never know his name. He was anonymous. Maybe that wasn't such a bad thing. Maybe Aldrich Killian could rule from behind the scenes. In that moment, a desperation is born, which sets Killian on a villainous path. Meanwhile, Maya shows Tony her research. She calls it Extremis. Through genetic manipulation, organisms can be taught to rapidly heal, regrow limbs, and more. But she needs help working out some bugs, like the tendency for those organisms to explode. But Tony is much more interested in her than her research. They spend the night together, and the next morning, Tony lives up to his playboy reputation by not being there. Though he does leave behind a formula he worked out to help with her exploding problem. Maya and Aldrich, both dismissed by Tony Stark, soon join forces to further Extremis research. On April 16, 2005, the Hulk is born. Dr. Bruce Banner had been recruited by General Thaddeus Ross to work on experiments involving gamma radiation. The general told him it was to develop solutions for radiation resistance, but in reality, they were trying to recreate the formula for Dr. Erskine's super soldier serum, something no one's been able to replicate. In the experiment, Bruce works closely with General Ross's daughter, Betty, who also happens to be the woman he loves. The two have been close since attending Harvard together years earlier. But on that day in 2005, things go wrong. With their budget close to running out and the project on life support, Banner makes the drastic decision to test it on himself. The result? he turns into a hulking green monster anytime his stress levels rise too high. In the days that follow, Ross admits the truth to Banner and tries to enlist his help in finishing the work they started, perfecting the serum. After all, a few Hulks in the military would make them a force to be reckoned with. But Banner refuses to become a weapon and instead goes on the run, becoming a fugitive and leaving Betty, the love of his life, behind. In New York City, Matthew Murdock meets someone who just might be the love of his life, Elektra. By now, Matt has become a skilled fighter and master of his gifts, though he keeps the extent of his abilities hidden from those around him, even his roommate and best friend Foggy Nelson. One night, they crash an expensive party where he meets the mysterious Elektra. The two quickly fall for each other, even more so when she realizes what he really is. Like her, Matthew is a skilled fighter. But one night, the difference between them is laid bare. He confides in her what happened to his dad, and she tracks down his employer, the man who killed battling Jack Murdock, Roscoe Sweeney. It's a gift, a chance for revenge. Matt does let out some rage, but stops just short of doing what Elektra hoped. She wants Matt to kill him, a line he refuses to cross. That's where their relationship ends. Elektra disappears and returns to the one who sent her. Matt will not learn this truth for years, but their meeting was no mistake. It was arranged by Stick. Like Matt, she was trained by him. Unlike Matt, she did not disappoint. And in the hope of recruiting Matt to the chase after all, Stick sent Elektra to find him and push him to give in to his darker impulses. In the end, not only did she fail, but she also fell in love with him. By 2007, Xu Wenwu and Ying Li have settled down. He hoped to join her in Ta Lo, but the village elders refused, worried his past would catch up with him. Instead, they live in China, where they raise a son and daughter, Shang-Chi and Xia Ling. One day, Ying Li tells her son the story of the 10 Rings, how she and his father met, and she tells him how she managed to beat his father. She used magic of the Great Protector, an ability only available to her in Ta Lo. Though she can't bring Shang-Chi to her home, she gives him a small piece of it, a green pendant, promising whenever he feels lost, it will help him find his way home. Soon, just as the elders feared, Wenwu's past catches up with him. While he's out, Ying Li trains her son in the techniques which allowed her to harness the Great Protector's power, a power unavailable to her when the Iron Gang shows up. They've had a grievance with her husband after 10 years ago, he nearly destroyed their gang as punishment for selling weapons in his territory. Now, as repayment, they murder his wife, while Shang-Chi watches. When his father sees the body, he picks up his 10 rings for the first time in a decade and brings the boy to watch him massacre the Iron Gang. He doesn't find their boss, who actually ordered the hit, but for now, he settles the blood of his men. Xu Wenwu looks at his traumatized son and tells him, a blood debt has to be paid by blood. From then on, he puts Shang-Chi through brutal training to ensure that one day he will be strong enough to wield the 10 rings himself. And though his sister Xia Ling is forbidden from joining the training, she watches and teaches herself to be even better. In Oklahoma, a young Maya Lopez is about to begin her own journey. She was born deaf like her mother. This can make things difficult for her, but the struggle also makes her stronger, and so does her family, including her cousin Bonnie, who is more like a sister to her. One night, during a sleepover, Maya and her mother drive out with some hot cocoa, but the brakes were cut, and she can't stop at the intersection. The resulting crash kills Maya's mother, and she loses a leg as a result of her own injuries. After that, Maya's grandmother Chula wants nothing to do with her or her father William. This was all his fault. His involvement in organized crime got her daughter killed. William takes Maya to New York City and raises her there. He runs a small gang, the Tracksuit Mafia, and grows their size by partnering with Wilson Fisk, now an up-and-coming crime lord, and he becomes something like an uncle to Maya. Watching Fisk and her father, Maya trains hard in martial arts, hoping to follow in their footsteps, even if her father wishes she wouldn't. Over 2 decades after visiting Earth, the High Evolutionary continues his experiments to create perfect beings for a perfect new world. Included in Batch 89 is an otter, walrus, and rabbit. Each has been augmented with robotics, granting them higher intellect and the ability to speak. They are soon joined by a terrified young raccoon, who has just been through the same torturous process as them, ripped from the others of his kind, torn apart, put back together, and tossed in a cage. But these other animals offer him comfort, and the raccoon, Subject 89P13, makes his first friends. And to the High Evolutionary, the results are thus far promising. The raccoon is smart. The High Evolutionary shows him Counter-Earth, the new world he's created for where the experiments will go once they're ready. It's the first time this raccoon has seen the outside. He's awed by it, and is particularly taken by something he sees flying in the great blue sky. A rocket. And he's discovered a new hobby, stealing little things left behind by scientists. The High Evolutionary shows him the latest batch of experiments. Rather than grafting robotics onto animals, he's found a way to rapidly evolve them into humanoid animen. But they always turn violent, making them unfit for his utopia. The raccoon quickly spots the problem and tells the scientist how to fix it. The experiments will soon be ready. The raccoon and his 3 friends look forward to finally reaching their new home in a new world. And before they arrive, the otter suggests they should each pick a name, something more than 89Q12 or 89Q3. She chooses Lila, the walrus chooses Teefs, and the rabbit, who happens to be lying on the floor, chooses Floor. As for the raccoon, he tells his friends, "Someday, I'm going to make great machines that fly, and me and my friends are going to go flying together into the forever and beautiful sky. Lila and Teefs and Floor and me, Rocket." But Rocket is gravely mistaken. The High Evolutionary creates Batch 92 based on 89P13's suggestion, and it works. The Animen are no longer rageful. But how did this raccoon know? The High Evolutionary is furious. He himself could not solve the rage problem, yet somehow this creature, his own creation, knew better. Nevertheless, Batch 92 is ready for the new world. "We're going to the new world?" Rocket asks. The High Evolutionary is almost amused to learn the raccoon, a crudely cobbled together experiment, a medley of mistakes to learn from, thought he would be joining them in the new world. No, the raccoon's brain is to be removed for research, and the rest of Batch 89 is to be incinerated. Rocket breaks the news to his friends and moves quickly. He uses the items he stole to build a key card, which will allow them to escape. Then they'll steal a rocket and fly away. The card works, and the High Evolutionary knew. He knew Rocket would try something, and he was ready. A bullet pierces Lila's heart. Rocket screams in agony and takes out his rage on the High Evolutionary's face. He trades bullets with men who come for him, and they fall. But so do his friends, Floor and Teefs. Rocket runs. He grabs a ship, and he flies off, alone. By 2008, Natasha Romanoff has been through the Red Room and killed many on their behalf, something she's come to detest but can't escape. Until S.H.I.E.L.D. sends Clint Barton after her, a bow and arrow-wielding agent codenamed Hawkeye. But rather than kill Natasha, he sees good in her, and instead helps her defect from the Red Room and join S.H.I.E.L.D. Her first mission? Kill General Dreykov and take down the Red Room. She and Hawkeye head to Budapest, where Natasha does something which will haunt her for years. She watches Dreykov's daughter enter the building to confirm he's in there, then gives Clint the order to blow it up with the girl inside. To escape the aftermath, Clint and Natasha shoot it out with Hungarian special forces and hide out for 10 days until they can leave, leaving the Red Room destroyed. But unbeknownst to her, it survives, and so does Dreykov, meaning her one sister, Yelena, is still captive to it. Meanwhile, Tony Stark continues to run Stark Industries successfully. Some accuse him of profiteering, creating weapons that fuel global warfare. But those criticisms are easy to ignore as he lives the playboy lifestyle of a billionaire. But all that will soon change. His father's old business partner, Obadiah, has grown tired of living in Tony's shadow and hires the Ten Rings to assassinate him. When Tony visits Afghanistan to demonstrate his new Jericho missile for the U.S. military, the Ten Rings make their move. An explosion takes out Stark's convoy and nearly kills him. But the Ten Rings force a doctor in their captivity, Ho Yinsen, to save his life. Tony wakes up with a car battery-powered electromagnet in his chest, which stops the shrapnel in his bloodstream from reaching his heart. Why did they save him? Once the Ten Rings realized who their target was, they realized he is worth a lot more to them than Obadiah's payment. Instead of killing him, they forced Tony to build them their own Jericho missile. With the threat of execution, Tony agrees. But in secret, he works with Yinsen to build something else, an exoskeleton, a prototype for what will become the Iron Man armor. And Tony builds a small arc reactor, inspired by his father's work, to replace the electromagnet in his chest and power the suit. Using the armor, Tony escapes, but only thanks to Yinsen's sacrifice. He buys Tony the time they need to power the suit by getting himself killed. But before passing, he has enough breath left to make Tony promise not to waste his second chance at life. Tony kills most of his captors, then leaves the compound by crash landing far from it. He ditches the busted armor to reach his rescue party, which includes his old friend from MIT, now U.S. Air Force officer, James Rhodes, or Rhodey. Returning home, Tony holds to the promise he made Yinsen by announcing that Stark Industries will no longer manufacture weapons, and by paying a little more attention to the people close to him, including his assistant, Pepper Potts. In the spirit of bettering the world, Tony turns his attention to renewable energy, starting by building another, more powerful arc reactor. He replaces the one in his chest and discards it, though Pepper holds onto it, encasing it in a display with the words, "Proof that Tony Stark has a heart." The new reactor is strong enough to power the Mark II armor, an armor Stark is inspired to build after his experience in the desert. He works on it in secret with help from his AI companion, Jarvis. One night, at a Stark-sponsored charity event, Tony and Pepper grow closer as they share a dance and nearly kiss. But his night takes a sour turn when he learns something about Obadiah Stane. He's been selling Stark weapons to the Ten Rings. Why? By arming the U.S. military and their enemies, war rages on, and so do their profits. Outraged, Tony suits up and visits Gulmira, a village under siege by the Ten Rings. The village where Ho Yinsen and his family used to live. Using the armor, Tony easily frees them all, catching the attention of the U.S. Air Force. But Tony calls Rhodey to reveal he's the guy in the suit, and his friend does his best to cover for him. Back home, Tony tells Pepper about the armor he's built and what he's learned about Tony. To find out more, she snoops on Obadiah's computer, revealing he's the one who hired the Ten Rings to grab Tony. Obadiah quickly notices Pepper's snooping and notices she's taken evidence with her. He's in trouble, but he won't go down without a fight. The Ten Rings were able to find Tony's original suit in the desert, and Obadiah used it to build his own. He just needs a way to power it. So he helps himself to the arc reactor in Tony's chest, leaving him to die. Thankfully, this was the second one he built. And thankfully, Pepper Potts is sentimental, so she saved the first. Now, it saves Tony's life. The two men don their armor and fight. In the battle, Tony pushes himself and the suit to the limit, only to find it isn't enough. He'll need help, and he gets it, from Pepper and from Agent Coulson of S.H.I.E.L.D., whose attention Tony attracted thanks to his recent actions. They defeat Stane and kill him in the process. The next day, the public names this unidentified savior Iron Man. and Coulson helps maintain his secret identity by creating an alibi. But Tony has plans of his own. He steps before the press and makes an announcement. I'm Iron Man. That night, he finds Nick Fury waiting at his home, there to tell him about something called the Avengers Initiative. And while Fury recruits his heroes, a villain prepares to ascend. In Earth's distant future, a man will discover the multiverse and meet variants of himself from other worlds. One variant seeks to conquer other worlds, earning himself the name Kang the Conqueror. The other variants exile him to a place outside time and space, the Quantum Realm, where Janet Van Dyne has been stranded for over 20 years, since stopping the Soviet missile. When Kang arrives, he introduces himself as a harmless traveler who crash-landed. He explains that his ship can travel between worlds. If Janet could help him fix it, they could both go home. Together, they repair the multiversal energy core needed to power the ship, a ship which happens to be neurokinetic. The moment Kang turns it on, his and Janet's minds are connected. She sees who he really is, an exile who has destroyed entire worlds and timelines, and will destroy more if allowed to leave. Janet quickly blows up the core using Pym particles, stranding Kang and herself in the Quantum Realm. By 2010, Stark has only become more renowned as a hero. The people celebrate his success at the opening ceremony of Stark Expo. But he has a problem. The core which keeps the shrapnel in his body at bay is powered by palladium, a substance which is apparently toxic and killing him. He doesn't have much time left. He keeps this to himself, but his actions show it. In fact, he picks his successor, promoting Pepper Potts to CEO, which means he needs a new assistant. So he chooses Natalie Rushman, unaware this is actually Natasha Romanoff, sent by Fury to spy on him. A few days later, Tony recklessly decides to race in the Monaco Grand Prix. And this is when Ivan Vanko, son of the Russian scientist deported by Howard, chooses to strike. Picking up from his father's research, Ivan has managed to build his own arc reactor and exoskeleton. The race is interrupted by his attack with electrified whips. But with help from Pepper, his driver/bodyguard Happy Hogan, and his Mark V suitcase suit, Tony defeats the villain. Meanwhile, after a 5-year search, Dr. Bruce Banner is located in Rio de Janeiro. Ross sends a team after him, including ex-Special Ops Commander Emil Blonsky. The Hulk escapes, meaning Blonsky failed. That doesn't sit well, and taking down the Hulk becomes his personal vendetta. And Banner makes his next move. He's been in contact with scientist Dr. Samuel Stearns, who's been helping him find a cure. Banner's been sending him blood samples, but to make any further progress, they'll need data from the original experiment. So he heads back to America to get it. And in America, the government is in a panic over Ivan Vanko's public display. It signals that others can replicate Iron Man tech, including America's enemies. This puts pressure on them to get a hold of that tech themselves. Rhodey warns Tony that if he doesn't hand it over, they will take it by force. Meanwhile, Stark Industries competitor Justin Hammer has grown tired of living in the shadow of Tony Stark. They simply can't keep up with Stark technology, and Tony has no shame in reminding them of it. But Justin sees opportunity in Ivan. With Hammer's investment, Ivan could build something to outclass even Stark. So he breaks him out of jail and hires him to build some weapons. Justin hopes to show them off at Stark Expo and embarrass Tony. But Ivan has other plans. Revenge. And in a few days, over just a 1-week period, Tony will fight for his life, Hulk will be revealed to the world, and so will Thor. It all begins the night of Tony Stark's birthday. Tony drinks away the woes of impending death by palladium, and things get dangerous when the drunk billionaire puts on his armor to show off its firing power. Rhodey steals the Mark II armor and confronts his friend, demanding he stop. But Tony won't listen to reason, and they fight until Rhodey takes off with the armor. The next day, he hands it over to the U.S. Air Force, where Justin Hammer is brought in to examine it and make some upgrades, turning Tony's Mark II armor into the War Machine armor. All of this has been reported back to Fury by Romanoff, so he finally confronts Tony to set him on the right path. Nick hands over some of his father's old things and promises they contain something which will solve his palladium problem. Meanwhile, there is trouble in Asgard. During Thor's coronation, frost giants break into Odin's vault to steal back their casket of ancient winters. But they are easily killed by the Destroyer, an automaton built by Odin to guard his vault. Young, brash, and thirsty for war, Thor insists on heading to Jotunheim to punish the frost giants for their transgression. But Odin wisely orders that they keep the peace. Orders which Thor ignores. He rounds up a few of his friends and crosses the Rainbow Bridge to the Bifrost, which allows them to teleport between the 9 realms. The Bifrost is guarded by Heimdall, an Asgardian with a near-omniscient ability to see anything happening within the 9 realms. Disturbed by the Frost Giant's ability to get past him earlier, he lets Thor and his friends through to investigate, despite Odin's orders to leave things be. In Jotunheim, Thor wreaks havoc on the Frost Giants, and Loki learns something about himself. The touch of the Frost Giants should be deadly, but for some reason, it isn't harmful to Loki. On Earth, Tony goes through the box and finds footage of his father, taken while recording his welcome speech for a Stark Expo of years past. Between takes, he decided to leave a message for his son, where he tells Tony, "What is and always will be my greatest creation is you." Something Tony badly needed to hear, after never hearing anything close to it while his father was alive. And he finds plans for an element superior to palladium, something his father theorized but didn't have the technology to actually synthesize. Now, in 2010, Tony does. He creates the new element, and with that, his life is saved. The core is no longer powered by toxic palladium, but by this new, safer element. In Jotunheim, before things get too out of hand, Odin arrives to take the Asgardians home, and as punishment for his reckless actions, he banishes Thor to Midgard, also known as Earth. He also takes away Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, the weapon which helps channel his powers. Odin casts a spell to ensure it can only be held by one who is worthy, then sends it to Earth as well. On Earth, physicists Jane Foster and Professor Eric Selvig, along with intern Darcy Lewis, have been researching strange anomalies in the skies. Thor's arrival in the middle of one reveals them to be wormholes, produced by the Bifrost. That night, Justin Hammer has his presentation at Stark Expo, including James Rhodes in the upgraded War Machine armor, and an army of drones. But the armor and drones are quickly hijacked by Vanko, who turns them on the crowd. But a now healthy Tony has just arrived. He leads the army away, while Happy and Romanoff go after Vanko directly, while Pepper coordinates with police to protect the civilians. Vanko escapes, but Romanoff hacks his terminal to return control of the suit to Rhodes, allowing him and Tony to fight together. They quickly destroy most of the drones, and when Vanko shows up himself, they destroy him too. But the remaining drones are rigged to explode, including one right next to Pepper. Tony arrives just in time to save her, and before the adrenaline wears off, the two finally kiss. The next day, Banner visits his old lab, but finds all the data on his experiment erased. On Asgard, Loki wonders why the Frost Giant's touch left him unharmed. He demands answers, and Odin finally gives them, revealing Loki's true nature as a Frost Giant, the baby abandoned by the king of Jotunheim. Loki yells at his father for the lies, but Odin collapses into a coma. Old age takes its toll, leaving Loki to usurp the throne. Meanwhile, Jane and company introduce Thor to earthly delicacies like Pop-Tarts, until they hear about the crater 50 miles away, where Thor surmises his hammer landed. That night, he fights his way past the shield perimeter, which has already formed, but when he grabs the hammer, it won't budge. He's not yet worthy. Coulson takes him in, and while in shield custody, Loki pays him a visit. He lies, telling Thor their father is dead, and their mother insists he remain banished. Thor accepts his fate as an outcast, and Coulson lets him go, though hasn't followed. He returns to Jane's trailer. He finally tells her about Asgard and the 9 realms, things which fill the scientist's mind with wonder. They talk late into the night, and she finds herself falling in love with a god. And Thor finds himself falling in love with a mortal. Meanwhile, Loki visits his biological father, Laufey, with the Frost Giants, and plots behind Odin's back. He agrees to let Laufey into Odin's chambers while he sleeps so he can kill the Asgardian king. In reality, Loki intends to kill Laufey before he gets to Odin as part of a plot to paint himself as a hero, finally winning Odin's affection over Thor and solidifying his place as heir. Loki's return, Heimdall is suspicious. Loki used magic to cloak his whereabouts, blocking Heimdall's ability to see him. He realizes Loki was likely dealing with Laufey behind his back, and that Loki was the one who let in the Frost Giants yesterday. Somehow, he found secret pathways between realms and was able to open a portal to Jotunheim without the Bifrost. He'd done it just to mess up Thor's big day, but now Loki sees opportunity for much more. He could be king. That same night, despite Banner's attempt to remain hidden, Betty Ross spots him. They share a tearful reunion, and she reveals that when Ross hid away their data, she secretly kept some of it. Meanwhile, Ross offers Emil Blonsky an experimental dose of their super soldier serum, and he enthusiastically agrees to take it. He'll do whatever it takes to even the playing field against the Hulk. The next morning, Betty and Bruce prepare to part ways, when he's attacked by Ross's men and a serum-enhanced Blonsky. The Hulk emerges, and in the ensuing battle, Blonsky is badly wounded. Betty is nearly caught in the crossfire, but the Hulk protects her, and the general watches the monster save his daughter's life, then leave with her. And their battle on the college campus does not go unnoticed by the public. In New Mexico, another public battle occurs. Having caught on to Loki's schemes, Heimdall sends Thor's friends to Earth behind Loki's back. But Loki quickly learns what he's done, so he freezes Heimdall and sends the Destroyer to Earth. Thor and his friends fight the automaton, but are no match for it, until Thor offers to sacrifice himself, hoping to protect his friends and the nearby civilians. He is severely wounded, and Jane cries over the dying god, the god who has proven himself worthy. Mjolnir returns to Thor, and so do its powers. The god of thunder destroys the Destroyer, and in the aftermath, he agrees to be Coulson's ally, should the need arise in the future. Thor shouts for Heimdall to return them home. The Guardian of the Bifrost frees himself from Loki's ice and opens the bridge. Thor promises Jane he will return. Then they kiss, and he leaves. He returns to Asgard just in time to find Loki killing Laufey, stopping the Frost Giant from assassinating Odin. Then Loki sets a plan in motion to use the Rainbow Bridge to destroy Jotunheim. He hopes that when Odin wakes up, he'll see Loki saved his life and destroyed their enemy, making him worthy of the throne. But as much as Thor was willing to fight the Frost Giants earlier, committing genocide on their race is something else entirely. So he stops Loki the only way he can, by destroying the bridge, severing their means of travel between worlds, and sacrificing any hope of visiting Jane. He and Loki fall into the void, but Odin wakes just in time to catch them. Thor is saved, but Loki has other plans. He lets go and falls to parts unknown. 2 days later, Bruce and Betty meet with Dr. Samuel Stearns. Now that they have the data, it's time to actually try administering the cure. The results are inconclusive, and they're interrupted anyway by Ross and Blonsky's arrival. Ross takes Bruce into custody, while Blonsky stays behind. At gunpoint, he forces Stearns to give him some of what Bruce has. After a taste, he wants more than what the General Serum has to offer. The result is an abomination. Blonsky becomes an uncontrolled monster and rampages through the city. Seeing the abomination's rampage, Bruce begs the General to take him back so he can stop him, and seeing no other choice, the General agrees. Bruce leaps from the jet. He can't control the Hulk, but maybe he can aim it. By the time he lands, Bruce is gone, and in his place is the Incredible Hulk. The two monsters fight, and after a lengthy battle, the Hulk is victorious. In the chaos, Stearns gets a head wound, and some of Bruce's blood drips into it, seemingly having an effect, planting the seeds for Stearns to one day become the villain known as the Leader. In the aftermath, Betty approaches him, the Hulk collects one of her tears and says her name. But Bruce and the Hulk both know they can't be with her. It would only put her in danger again. So the green monster runs away, but with a new goal in mind. Bruce will no longer try to rid himself of the Hulk. Instead, he will learn to control it. 1 year later, S.H.I.E.L.D. discovers Captain America frozen and preserved in the icy waters, where he crashed Red Skull's plane. He wakes up in Nick Fury's custody. His first moments are chaos, wondering where and when he is. Realization quickly sets in. He's been asleep for 70 years. Though his conversation with Peggy feels like moments ago, a conversation where they set a date for that long-promised dance. Meanwhile, after years of painstakingly killing one half of a population after another, Thanos has realized there is a better way. If he could obtain all 6 Infinity Stones, he could combine their power, and with the snap of his finger, erase half the population of the universe in one fell swoop. First, he sets his sights on the Space Stone, contained inside the Tesseract, and makes a deal with Loki to obtain it. It seems that after falling into that void 2 years ago, the energy of the Bifrost eventually brought Loki to the Sanctuary, an asteroid field where the other, a conduit to Thanos, meets with Loki to strike the bargain. If Loki steals the Tesseract, they'll give him an army to conquer humanity. Craving power and vengeance after losing Asgard, Loki takes the deal. Armed with a powerful scepter, capable of destruction and mind control, Loki has no trouble stealing the Tesseract from Fury. And with the scepter, he takes control of Clint Barton, a.k.a. Hawkeye, and Professor Selvig. Fury and his best agents Maria Hill chase after Loki, but to no avail. And Loki quickly puts the professor to work, building a machine that will open a portal for his army, composed of an alien race called Chitauri. With the Tesseract gone and the facility destroyed, Nick Fury announces that they are at war. For the battle ahead, their first recruit is Natasha Romanoff. She's hesitant to skip out on her current mission, but once she hears that Barton is in trouble, she quickly joins the fight. Her orders are to recruit Bruce Banner. She finds him living as a doctor in India. He's hesitant until she tells him the stakes. The Tesseract has the energy to wipe out their planet, and it's been taken. They don't know where to, but it emits low levels of gamma radiation, something Banner is intimately familiar with. Steve Rogers, who hasn't had a mission in 70 years, needs little convincing to join the cause. Tony Stark's only hesitation is leaving Pepper behind, but they recognize the urgency of the mission, and she promises she'll be waiting for him after. Using their global surveillance, S.H.I.E.L.D. finds Loki, and Fury sends Captain America after him. He arrives just in time to save an innocent life, though he struggles in a one-on-one brawl with Loki, until Iron Man shows up. They take him into custody, but it seems that Odin was able to use some dark magic to send Thor to Earth, even without the Bifrost. Thor grabs his brother, and it takes some time for him and Iron Man to realize they're on the same side. But with Captain America's help, they unite, and Thor returns Loki to S.H.I.E.L.D. custody. As Stark and Banner analyze Loki's staff for clues on the Tesseract's location, Stark asks what his secret is. How has Banner learned to keep from transforming into the Hulk? Before he can answer, Rogers interrupts. He's shocked to learn that Stark and Banner suspect Fury is hiding something, but their suspicion is contagious, and Rogers investigates. He quickly discovers the truth. Fury intends on using the Tesseract's power to make weapons of mass destruction. The team confronts him, but Fury points out that with God-level threats out there, humanity needs more firing power. The team argues, and things become personal. Rogers accuses Stark of being nothing behind his suit of armor. When the chips are down, Stark fights for himself. He doesn't know how to sacrifice when necessary. They're interrupted by an attack led by the mind-controlled Hawkeye. Banner is finally pushed too far. The Hulk emerges. The team puts petty differences aside and works together. Captain America and Iron Man fix the damage to the ship. Thor contains Hulk as best he can, until the green monster plummets from the ship and turns back into Bruce, and Natasha takes on Barton, hitting his head hard enough to wake him up. Although they fight off their attackers, it's not without cost. Fury shares the bad news. Not only did Loki escape, but he also killed Agent Coulson, and he tells them about the Avengers Initiative, how he hoped to bring a group of extraordinary people together to fight the battles they couldn't. Coulson believed in that vision. Fury inflames their guilt by showing the bloodied Captain America trading cards he found in Coulson's pocket. Coulson looked up to the heroes, and apparently it cost him his life. In truth, Fury found the cards in Coulson's locker, but he knew the team needed something to rally around. Coulson knew it too. So he used his death to that end. And it works. They quickly rally and get back to work. As a team, they realize Loki is vain, and would want an audience to witness his conquest. He'll open the portal at Stark Tower, in the middle of Manhattan. Iron Man gets there first, but too late to stop the machine. The portal opens, the Chitauri arrive, and the Battle of New York begins. Working together, they protect civilians and fight the swarm. In the midst of battle, Banner reveals his secret to containing the Hulk. He's always angry, and today, he lets the anger flow. Hulk wreaks havoc on the enemy. But as long as the portal remains open, the swarm keeps coming, and there's a ticking clock they don't know about yet. The World Security Council tells Fury that the threat needs to be contained, even if it costs them a city and all the lives within it. They prepare to launch a nuclear strike. In the chaos, Selvig is woken up and reveals that even under Loki's power, some part of him was present and created a failsafe to close the portal. He and Natasha get to work. Fury alerts Stark to the incoming nuclear missile, which has just launched. Stark tells Romanoff to hold off on closing the portal, so he can grab the nuke and bring it through the wormhole to detonate far from Earth. He knows it'll be a one-way trip, but it's a sacrifice he's willing to make. Tony calls Pepper to say farewell. The call goes unanswered. So without the luxury of last words, Stark flies into the portal, and he falls just as the bomb explodes. He falls back through the portal just before it closes. His suit fails him, and he careens toward death until Hulk catches him. Tony Stark lives, and the world is saved. The heroes treat themselves to some shawarma, and Thor returns home, with Loki and the Tesseract. The Avengers were victorious, but many civilian lives were lost, including Garrett Bishop. However, Hawkeye managed to save the life of his daughter Kate, and inspire her to one day pick up the bow and arrow herself. In the days that follow, a salvage company owned by Adrian Toomes is hired to clean up New York City, which was left a mess after the battle. But apparently Stark Industries has joined efforts with the federal government to form the Department of Damage Control to oversee collection and storage of alien and other exotic materials. They unceremoniously take the job from Adrian and his employees, depriving them of sorely needed paychecks. To recoup their loss, Toomes and his men decide to enter a new business. Rather than hand over all the Chitauri equipment and weapons they salvaged, they'll hold on to some of it, and they'll use it to build alien weapons they can sell on the black market. In Asgard, Odin sentences Loki to an eternity in the dungeons for his Earth takeover attempt. And on Earth, Fury meets with Vara. She shares with him one of her favorite poems, and they recite it together. The two are in love, and will soon marry. The following year is the 5,000th anniversary of the Convergence, meaning it's time for another. The 9 realms come into alignment and cause strange anomalies around the world, catching Darcy Lewis and Jane Foster's attention. As they investigate, Jane is pulled into a portal and comes into contact with the Ether, hidden millennia ago by the Asgardian king Vor. The power is absorbed into her body, which puts a target on her back for the Dark Elves, who intend on using its power once again. Meanwhile, Thor has been busy. After the Bifrost was destroyed and Asgard was cut off from most of the realms, chaos and power grabs ensued. He's been busy taking his armies across the realms to tamp down the turmoil. Now, things are mostly peaceful, and the Bifrost has been repaired. But while Asgard celebrates, Thor is sullen. He can only think of the mortal he fell in love with, Jane Foster, someone he hasn't seen since they first met. So when Heimdall reports Jane's plight, the god of thunder rushes to Earth for a long-awaited reunion and brings the ether-infected Jane back to Asgard, leading the Dark Elves right to them. They manage to fight off the elves, but not without cost. Thor's mother, Frigga, protects Jane by sacrificing herself. Asgard mourns their queen. Thor mourns his mother, then gets back to work and comes up with a plan. Asgard cannot withstand another attack, and the Dark Elves will certainly return. So Thor will take Jane somewhere far away. The ether inside her will attract the elves again, and the moment they extract it from her body, Thor will destroy it. Odin forbids Thor pursuing this plan, as it would be too dangerous. But Thor is never one to follow orders. If he must commit treason to save Asgard and the Nine Realms, so be it. But he needs to be discreet. So rather than use the Bifrost, he goes to someone who knows other secret pathways between the realms. His brother, Loki. Thor reluctantly breaks him out of the dungeons, and they head off to the Dark Elves' homeworld. At first, things go according to plan. The elves come. They extract the ether, but it's harder to destroy than Thor anticipated. Loki is seemingly killed, and the elves escape to Earth with the ether in hand. There, the elves can fire its power at the point of convergence, shooting it through all 9 realms to extinguish the light and restore the darkness they so crave. But even after losing a mother and a brother, Thor does not give up, and neither do his friends. Back on Earth, Darcy has found Professor Selvig, who's been studying the convergence and developed machines to stop it. The only problem is, they're too late. The Dark Elves have begun the process, and no human could survive bringing Selvig's machines into the weaponized ether. Thankfully, they have a god on their side. Thor enters the darkness to defeat Malekith, leader of the Dark Elves, and get Selvig's machines in position. The convergence is stopped, and on the 5,000th anniversary of Thor's grandfather defeating the elves, Thor himself now claims the same victory. In the aftermath of the battle, he returns to Asgard, where he rejects the throne. He will defend the realm with his last and every breath, but Thor cannot do so from the throne. He'd rather be a good man than a great king, and he'd rather spend the rest of his life with Jane. So he leaves for Earth to do exactly that, though Thor is unaware what he's left behind. Loki is alive. He survived the earlier attack, but with his usual tricks, created an illusion to appear slain. Instead, he's returned to Asgard and usurped the throne by disguising himself as Odin. Meanwhile, Asgard brings the ether somewhere safe, to a museum in a distant part of the universe, run by a being known as the Collector. And he agrees to keep the ether, really the Reality Stone, safe in his vault. Meanwhile, Tony Stark learns what happens after you come face-to-face with an alien threat and nearly die alone, away from home in some distant part of the universe. Every day he lives in fear. What if the aliens return? What if some other, worse threat shows up? That fear robs Tony of sleep and sometimes robs him of breath. Anxiety attacks strike at the mere mention or thought of the Avengers' battle in New York. Fear turns to desperation. Tony works without rest to upgrade his armor, rapidly iterating to Mark 42. He even builds armor powered by the Jarvis AI, so they can function without a pilot, and gives himself the ability to summon armor with his mind. He will be prepared for the next threat, even if it kills him. That's how far he'd go to save the world and to protect Pepper Potts, the woman he loves. That next threat looms in the form of Aldrich Killian and Maya Hansen. Their research on Extremis has reached the point of human trials, but sometimes those humans blow up, killing nearby civilians. Inspired by the anonymity he felt on that rooftop in 1999, Killian hides in the shadows, while creating a figurehead to take responsibility for the explosions. A terrorist named the Mandarin. In reality, he's an actor named Trevor Slattery, hired to play the role. One of those explosions puts Tony's once body bodyguard, now head of security, Happy Hogan, in the hospital. Now it's personal. Tony publicly challenges the Mandarin and recklessly hands out his home address on the news, telling the villain to come for him. Back home, he investigates and discovers there was an explosion in Tennessee similar to the Mandarin's, before the terrorists began taking credit for the explosions. Tony tries to flight, but before he can leave, Killian blows up his home. Pepper is nearly killed, but Tony acts fast, summoning an armor to protect her. And in his fight to stave off further attacks, he's knocked unconscious, while a damaged armor flies him across the country. The world presumes Tony dead as he wakes up in Tennessee. With his armor broken, Tony recruits the help of a local boy named Harley Keener, a kid with a similar interest in technology. Together, they investigate the explosion. Tony discovers that there was no bomb. It was the man himself who detonated, a result of Killian and Maya's research. They pinpoint the Mandarin's location to Miami. Tony heads there, but while he was gone, things went south. Killian captured Pepper and began testing Extremis on her. And he captured the War Machine armor, recently rebranded Iron Patriot, with Rhodes inside it. Tony interrogates the Mandarin, quickly learning his true identity as actor Trevor Slattery. But Killian's Extremis-powered men arrive and quickly take Stark into custody. But he summons an armor and manages to escape with Rhodes. The two of them uncover the rest of Killian's plot. He intends on killing the President of the United States on live TV. This would put the Vice President in charge, with whom Killian has struck a deal, to help the VP's daughter grow back her missing leg with Extremis. Killian got a taste of power after inadvertently owning the war on terror, and decided to go a step further, installing a president in his pocket. But with Rhodey's help and an army of AI-powered armors, Tony takes Killian down, rescues the president, and saves Pepper. Though she saves him a bit too, using some borrowed armor and the power of Extremis. In the immediate aftermath of the battle, Tony recognizes that his obsession with building armor consumed him, and created a chasm between him and Pepper. So, he initiates the Clean Slate Protocol, destroying the suits in a glorious fireworks display, on what happens to be Christmas Day. This is his gift to Pepper Potts, a commitment to try and be better and spend more time with her. In the days that follow, he cures her of Extremis before it gets dangerous, and while he's at it, finally removes the shrapnel from his body. Reflecting on his journey, Tony realizes that even when stripped of everything and stranded, he managed to claw back victory. His anxiety is not cured overnight, but he knows one thing which helps. Even without fancy armor, and without the arc reactor in his chest, Tony Stark is still Iron Man. In China, Shang-Chi's training reaches a pivotal moment. His father has located the Iron Gang leader responsible for Ying Li's death, and he tasks Shang-Chi with assassinating him. It would be his first kill. The 14-year-old boy accepts his mission, but after that, has no intention of returning home. Something only his sister knows. She begs him not to abandon her, but he lies, with the promise of returning in 3 days. Shang-Chi leaves. He kills the Iron Gang leader as promised, then flees to America to start a new life. By 2014, Nick Fury is becoming suspicious of S.H.I.E.L.D. They're about to activate Project Insight, where 3 helicarriers will be armed with precision weapons and linked to global satellites. They'll be able to assassinate anyone in an instant with the click of a button, and it could execute millions at a time. All it needs is a list of names. Fury suspects there's more he isn't being told, and believes the answer might lie in some classified data stored on a certain ship. So he covertly hires some pirates to take it hostage, giving him an excuse to dispatch Romanoff and Captain America. Steve frees hostages while Romanoff steals the data, and when Steve realizes that's the real reason they're on the ship, he's furious. He was kept in the dark by 2 people he thought he could trust. This is especially difficult for him because after 7 decades of sleep, Steve has few friends left. Peggy Carter suffers dementia as she lies on what will surely be her deathbed. And to Steve's knowledge, his best friend Bucky is long dead. But he does have a new friend in veteran Sam Wilson, a only met on a morning run. They relate because Sam is struggling to reintegrate into civilian life, while Steve is struggling to reintegrate into a new century. Meanwhile, Fury approaches his boss, Alexander Pierce, to ask for a delay on Project Insight. What Fury doesn't know is that Pierce is part of the Hydra parasite within S.H.I.E.L.D. In fact, he's one of its leaders. By exposing his suspicions and getting in their way, Fury has signed his own death warrant. After leaving the office, Fury is attacked by Hydra's brainwashed assassin, Bucky Barnes, codenamed the Winter Soldier. Fury barely manages to escape with his life. Then, he heads to Steve's apartment to tell him that S.H.I.E.L.D. is compromised. Before he can say much, the Winter Soldier finds him again, and this time manages to put a few bullets in him. Before he passes out, Fury hands Steve the USB drive of data rescued from the ship, and warns him to trust no one. Roger's neighbor runs into the room, revealing herself to be undercover S.H.I.E.L.D. agent 13, assigned to protect him. Unbeknownst to Steve, this is actually Peggy's great niece, Sharon Carter. She tends to Fury, while Rogers goes after the assassin, but the Winter Soldier proves a formidable foe, and escapes his grasp. Back at headquarters, Romanoff and Rogers watch doctors attempt to resuscitate Fury, and they watch Fury die. Pierce calls Rogers for a meeting to grill him about Fury's death. Rogers only shares that Fury warned him not to trust anyone, but he doesn't mention the USB drive. Convinced Captain America will be an impediment to his plans, Pierce tries to have him killed on the way out. But of course, Rogers escapes. Later, he reconvenes with Romanoff. He's reluctant to trust her, but has little choice. Right now, he's considered a fugitive and enemy of S.H.I.E.L.D. With one of the most powerful organizations in the world after him, Romanoff is a valuable ally. They check the USB drive, but find it's encrypted. The only info they get is the source. The program on it came from Camp Lehigh, New Jersey, the place where Rogers got his military training nearly a century ago. They head there and find a building that wasn't there before, and inside that building, they find Dr. Arnim Zola, or at least his mind, downloaded onto a warehouse of computer servers. The scientist reveals a truth that changes everything. S.H.I.E.L.D. is compromised by Hydra. Over the years, they've been ruling from the shadows and killing when necessary. And on the list of those they killed, Steve sees the names Howard and Maria Stark. Hydra was founded on the goal of protecting humanity from their own freedom. But when you try to take their freedom, humanity resists. So, over the decades, Hydra has sown chaos. Now, humanity is afraid, and they're ready to hand their freedom over willingly in exchange for safety. And Zola has programmed an algorithm, something which will be used in what he calls a purification process, the final step in Hydra's global takeover. Why is Zola telling them all this? A stalling tactic, until a missile can arrive. The place blows up, but thanks to Rogers' quick thinking, they live. Seeking refuge, they head to Sam Wilson's place, and he reveals what he used to do in the military. As part of Project Falcon, he was the pilot for advanced personal flight suits. Rogers and Romanoff break into the facility which houses the old suit, and just like that, they have a Falcon on their side. Next, they capture a Hydra agent and interrogate him for information. Finally, they learn the purpose of Zola's algorithm. Project Insight will use data, including bank records, medical histories, voting patterns, emails, and more, to predict who is most likely to threaten Hydra's cause. Then, in a flash, the 3 helicarriers will kill them all, millions at a time, including the likes of Bruce Banner and Stephen Strange. Anyone who's a threat to Hydra, now or in the future. After the interrogation, they're attacked by the Winter Soldier and Hydra forces. During the battle, Rogers unmasks the assassin and is shocked to see the face of his old friend, Bucky Barnes. That momentary distraction allows Hydra to gain the upper hand and capture them all. But they're quickly freed by S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Maria Hill. She takes them to a hiding place, where Fury reveals he is alive, having faked his own death to stay under Hydra's radar. He also reveals that Project Insight will launch in mere hours to stop stop it, they've created some chips which will let them take over the targeting systems. All they have to do is get aboard the helicarriers and install one on each before the assassinations begin. So they move quickly, breaking into S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, where Captain America gets on the intercom and makes an impassioned plea to the staff. He tells them all that Hydra is among them, even their friends may be compromised, and if they launch those helicarriers today, Hydra will have the power to kill anyone they want. Rogers asks them to disobey orders. Do not move forward with the launch. And he knows full well what he's asking for. Anyone who refuses to cooperate will likely be killed. He signs off by saying, I know I'm asking a lot, but the price of freedom is high. It always has been. And it's a price I'm willing to pay. And if I'm the only one, then so be it. But I'm willing to bet I'm not. And Steve is not wrong. Some of the staff do resist, but it only buys them minutes. Soon, the helicarriers are launched. Captain America and the Falcon get to work, boarding them and installing the chips. Meanwhile, Fury and Romanoff confront Pierce. Hacking into the system, Romanoff makes all their secured files public, revealing to the world that S.H.I.E.L.D. is Hydra. And doing so costs her dearly, because among those files are details of her checkered past. Rogers and Wilson successfully install 2 of the chips, but the Falcon gear is disabled, leaving the last to Steve, requiring him to fight Bucky one-on-one. Steve manages to install the chip, telling the helicarriers to destroy each other rather than any people. The battle is won, but the Winter Soldier still has his orders to kill Captain America. But as the helicarriers are torn apart by their own bullets, Steve refuses to fight his friend. He pleads for Bucky to remember who he is. You're my friend, Steve tells him. You're my mission, Bucky replies, and punches him repeatedly. But Steve will not defend himself. He only replies, then finish it, because I'm with you to the end of the line. Words Bucky once said to Steve, comforting him after his mother's death. That seems to trigger a faint memory. As the helicarrier falls apart, Steve plummets unconscious to the waters below. But he does not drown. Instead, he's rescued by the Winter Soldier, or at least that part of Bucky Barnes he managed to wake up. With S.H.I.E.L.D. effectively dissolved, Romanoff heads off to find herself a new identity. Fury heads off to track down and shut down any remaining Hydra cells, and Steve prepares to search for his old friend Bucky, with help from his new friend, Sam, a.k.a. the Falcon. In New York City, Matthew Murdock and Foggy Nelson get some good news. They've been interning at Landman and Zack, and have been offered permanent positions. A dream come true for Foggy. He's long dreamed of becoming a prestigious lawyer. But Matthew has something different in mind. Justice. And they've spent much of their internship helping the rich get richer, often at the expense of those less fortunate. Matt cannot accept the position, and though Foggy wants to make money, he does have a good heart, even if Matt has to remind him of it. So they leave Landman and Zack with dreams of starting their own firm. But lately, Matt has also discovered the limits of the law. His nights have become restless, interrupted by the sounds of a little girl crying, abused by her own father. To most, her suffering is silent, but even a block away, Matt hears everything. He reports the crime, but the mom doesn't believe it, and the dad is smart. He makes sure that what he does doesn't leave a mark. The law is powerless to help this girl, but Matthew is not. One night he finds the man. He beats him. He tells him that if he ever touches her again, he will know. The man spends the next month in a hospital eating through a straw, and Matt sleeps better than ever. That is how the Devil of Hell's Kitchen is born. When law and justice diverge, Matt steps in. Wearing a black costume and mask, he is nearly invisible in the dark. But for him, the world is never dark. Sound, touch, smell, taste, and feel paint a picture in his mind, more detailed than sight could ever provide. A world on fire. Far from Earth, 2 years after he failed to acquire the Space Stone, Thanos sets his sights on the Power Stone, which is contained inside an orb on Morag. where every 300 years the sea lowers and the Temple of the Power Stone becomes accessible. To acquire it, Thanos makes a deal with a Kree named Ronan. The Kree have been at war with the Nova Empire for 1,000 years. A peace treaty is imminent, but Ronan lost a father, grandfather, and great-grandfather in that war. He is not interested in peace. So Thanos promises that if Ronan delivers the orb, Thanos will destroy the Nova Empire's capital planet, Mando. But Thanos and Ronan aren't the only ones who want the orb. So does Peter Quill. 26 years ago, he lost his mother. All he has left of her is the tape which now accompanies him on Morag, Awesome Mix Volume 1. In her place, Yondu raised him as part of a space pirate syndicate known as Ravagers, turning Peter into a master thief and outlaw known, mostly to himself, as Star-Lord. Now he's ready to leave the Ravagers behind, but to do that, he needs money. So although he has no idea what's inside the orb, he knows someone hired Yondu to steal it, and Peter knows that if he steals it first, he gets the payday and will have enough to go out on his own. He clashes with Ronan's forces at the temple, but manages to escape with the orb. Next, he visits Xandar hoping to sell it, but instead finds trouble. Thanks to Peter's defiance, Yondu put a price on his head, which a couple of bounty hunters hope to collect. Rocket and the new friend he's made since escaping the High Evolutionary, Groot, a member of the tree-like Flora Colossus species, whose speech, to the untrained ear at least, seems limited to the phrase, I am Groot. And there's Gamora, who knows what power lies inside the orb, and hopes to keep it out of her father's hands. The four clash publicly, landing them in a Xandarian prison, where they meet Drax the Destroyer, who lost his wife and daughter to Ronan after his planet was given the Thanos treatment. He quickly attacks Gamora, assuming she is working with Ronan and Thanos, but Peter stops him, suggesting instead that he wait. If she is working with Ronan, the Kree will eventually come for her. Then Drax can get revenge on his true enemy. For now, they agree to work together with the promise of a big payday. If they can escape, Gamora knows who they can sell the orb to. They'll be well compensated, and it will be kept safely out of Thanos' hands. All they have to do is escape prison, something Rocket has done many times before. Working together, they get out, though Peter is nearly left behind when he runs back for his mother's tape. They reach Nowhere, a mining colony located in the skull of a long-dead Celestial, where they'll meet their buyer, the Collector. While they wait for the meeting, Gamora asks Peter about the tape. He tells her about his mom, how she gave it to him before she, and the memory is too painful to continue. Gamora sees his vulnerability, and when he plays the tape for her, they nearly kiss. But she is an assassin raised by the mad titan Thanos, and doesn't do well with vulnerability. The moment is short-lived. They meet with the Collector, who, after receiving the Reality Stone from Asgard last year, is excited to add another stone to his collection. He opens the orb and tells them about the Reality Stone's power. It's been used to destroy entire civilizations, and is too powerful to be wielded by mortals. But seeking to escape slavery, the Collector's servant, Karina, grabs it, either to end her misery, or perhaps in the faint hope of wielding its power against him. But, true to the Collector's word, it kills her and releases a shockwave of energy, destroying much of his collection. And soon there is more chaos as Ronan arrives. A drunk Drax skipped out on the meeting, and, sick of waiting for revenge, broadcasted their location to Ronan. The Kree arrives, and after a brief fight, he leaves unscathed with the orb in hand. It seems that Drax's revenge won't be so easily won. And Ronan didn't come alone. He also brought Gamora's sister along, Nebula. For years, she has lived under Gamora's shadow, competing for their father's praise. And each time Nebula was bested by Gamora, Thanos would rip a piece of her away, replacing it with machinery, turning her into a part robotic creature. As Peter and the others make their escape, Nebula takes her revenge, destroying Gamora's pod, leaving her to float in the void of space. Peter quickly broadcasts his location to Yondu, knowing he'll come for his head, then leaps after Gamora and hands over his breathing apparatus. She is resuscitated, while Peter's life begins to drain, as he stares into the eyes of someone he's beginning to care about deeply. And his plan works. Yondu picks them up, saving Peter's life before the other Ravagers call for his head. But Peter quickly strikes a deal to retrieve the orb back from Ronan. But for him, it's no longer about a payday. It's about saving lives, because now he knows about the stone's power. He knows that with it, Ronan can wipe out an entire planet. Something Ronan himself has realized. Opening the orb, he discovers the Power Stone, and decides he doesn't need Thanos' help. He'll visit Xandar, and by merely touching the planet's surface, destroy it. Peter gathers his makeshift team. They're hesitant to go up against Ronan. It's suicide, but they're moved by Peter's call to a higher purpose. Life so often takes, but today it's given them a chance to do something right, to save billions. And with that, the Guardians of the Galaxy are born. They warn the Nova Corps and fight alongside their forces, but find Ronan's army too powerful. The Guardians' ship is damaged. It falls toward the planet's surface. Groot brings them close and forms a cocoon. They'll be safe, but the impact will kill Groot. Rocket looks at his friend and asks, why? And the Flora Colossus responds, we are Groot. They crash. The once enemies, turned friends, and now family, step out of the wreckage. Ronan prepares to eradicate the planet. But even after every attack fails, Peter has one more trick up his sleeve. Dancing. The momentary distraction gives Drax a chance to shoot the stone out of Ronan's hands, giving Peter a chance to catch it. Holding it nearly kills him, but the celestial blood in his veins saves him, momentarily. Alone, he can't hold it much longer. But he's not alone. The other Guardians hold on to Peter to share the power and the pain. Together, they can just barely contain it, and direct it back at Ronan, killing the villain and saving the planet. Afterward, they leave the stone in the Nova Corps' care, and leave in search of further adventure. And although they mourn Groot, Rocket holds on to one of his twigs, which is slowly coming alive into a baby Groot. Later, Peter finally decides to open the gift his mother gave him 26 years ago. In it, he finds a tape. Awesome Mix, Volume 2. He listens to it, and the lyrics of Ain't No Mountain High Enough promise that whenever Peter needs it, someone will be there for him, no matter what. And as though on cue, Gamora approaches to remind him he's not alone. 3 months later, the Guardians have a new mission: rescue Nebula. She apparently got herself caught stealing valuable batteries from the Sovereign, a race of gold-skinned people created by the High Evolutionary as an aesthetic experiment. Something the Guardians don't know. Even Rocket is unaware they share a creator. After completing a job on the Sovereign's behalf, the High Priestess hands them Nebula as payment. Payment Rocket considers insufficient, so he helps himself to some valuable batteries on the way out. When the Sovereign realize they've been robbed, the Guardians find themselves in a shooting match, forcing them to crash land on a planet, where Ego reveals himself. Peter's father apparently tracked him down, and now invites him to his home planet. Drax and Gamora accompany him, while Nebula, Rocket, and the new baby Groot stay behind for ship repairs. On the way to Ego's planet, they meet Mantis, who belongs to a species with the ability to read and manipulate emotions, something she often uses to help Ego sleep, though she keeps to herself that Ego is also her father, making her Peter's sister. After they arrive, Ego tells Peter that he is the son of a Celestial, and he can share in the power that comes with it, as long as the light in Ego's planet stays lit. And he tells Peter about his plan to overwrite the universe, how he needs a partner for the task, and how Peter is best suited, because unlike his prior children, Peter successfully inherited the Celestial gene. And he tells him about the tumor he implanted in his mother. Peter is furious, and makes a feeble attempt to fight the god, who retaliates by incapacitating his son and sentencing him to 1,000 years as a battery for his planet. Meanwhile, Yondu is hired by the Sovereign to capture the Guardians and their batteries. He captures Rocket and Groot, but refuses to hand them over. The other Ravagers, sick of their captain's soft spot for Peter and his friends, turn against him, earning Yondu a spot in the cell next to Rocket. And the two realize they have a lot in common. Both are alone. Rocket as the only one of his kind, and Yondu, who leads an independent group of Ravagers after the rest exiled him for trafficking children to Ego. Working with Groot and Kraglin, one of the Ravagers still loyal to Yondu, they escape and head after Peter. Though Nebula gets there first, still thirsty for revenge on Gamora. But the two reach an uneasy truce as Gamora acknowledges the pain she caused by always winning their father's favor. And working together, they discover the pile of bodies on Ego's planet, the ones belonging to his previous children. They reconvene with Drax and Mantis, who finally reveals Ego's plan to overwrite the universe with himself. Just then, Rocket and Groot crash their ship into Ego, freeing Peter from his grasp. But Ego has already begun expansion. His seeds begin to grow on Earth and other planets across the universe. So, the Guardians of the Galaxy move fast. Mantis puts Ego to sleep, buying them time to plant a bomb in the planet's core, next to the god's essence. A bomb built using Sovereign batteries, who now arrive to take another shot at retrieving them. The Guardians fend off Sovereign drones and escape the planet, while Peter keeps the now awakened Ego busy in a fight between two Celestials. The bomb goes off, killing Ego and extinguishing the light in his planet, which turns Peter mortal. The explosion will kill him, except while Ego is dead, the father who raised him isn't. Yondu grabs Peter and flies him out. He tells the boy how lucky he feels to have been his father, and apologizes that he didn't do a better job, then hands over his oxygen mask, and once they reach space, dies in his son's arms. Peter screams and mourns another loss. But he doesn't need to look far for comfort, because waiting on the ship is his family, the Guardians of the Galaxy. And soon they are witness to a great Ravager funeral. Rocket sent out word of Yondu's sacrifice, and in death, he is accepted back into their community. Meanwhile, the Sovereign prepare for revenge on the Guardians. Currently forming inside a birth pod is the next step in their evolution. They call him Adam. While superheroes, gods, and aliens fight their wars, something dark festers in a small corner of the world. In New York City, a place called Hell's Kitchen. The Avengers battle in 2012 left the place in disrepair, and in the chaos of reconstruction, a criminal element has taken hold. Wilson Fisk brings together three mobster organizations for a common cause: the Russian mob, the Chinese triads, and the Yakuza. With the power of their combined forces, Fisk intends on rebuilding Hell's Kitchen as he sees fit, while killing anyone who gets in his way, including Karen Page, a secretary at one of his business fronts, who uncovers evidence of their criminal activities. First, they frame her for murder as a leverage to get back the files she stole. Then, they make two attempts on her life. The first, she survives on her own. The second, she survives thanks to a savior, the devil of Hell's Kitchen. Of course, she has no idea the man behind the mask is one of her lawyers, Matthew Murdock. She becomes Nelson and Murdock's first client, and with their help is exonerated of the crime. With her help, they begin to uncover Fisk's criminal organization by sharing the files she took with Ben Urich, a brave journalist at the New York Bulletin. After that, Karen also becomes Nelson and Murdock's first hire, and soon a close friend too. Working together, they uncover the full extent of Fisk's crimes, but it takes a few weeks, nearly gets all three of them killed, and tests the limits of their friendships. For Karen, it becomes a crusade. She moonlights as a journalist under Ben Urich's mentorship, repeatedly putting herself in danger to get closer to the truth. By night, Murdock keeps wearing the costume, waging a one-man war on Fisk's trio of mafias. But he finds out things are more complicated than he thought when Stick shows up. His old mentor reminds him of the importance of solitude. Friends are a distraction, and as a warrior, Mac only puts them in danger. But Stick is also here on business. He has been chasing the Hand, and now they've brought a dangerous weapon to New York, something called Black Sky, Matt agrees to help Stick stop them until he finds out that the weapon is a child. He tries to stop what he knows will happen next, but Stick is motivated, and ultimately, he does kill the boy. After that, Stick leaves his protege behind again, but once he's gone, Matt finds something he left behind which fell out of his pocket. That ice cream wrapper. It seems even he is not above sentimentality, and Matt did mean something to him after all. But soon, Matt feels anything but sentimental. Soon, he feels more like Stick, ready to take a life. Fisk is a scourge on this city, who has somehow placed himself above the law, stepping on the necks of innocents to get there. While he breathes, people suffer and die. Could that really be God's will? Or is it now Matthew's obligation to ensure he breathes no more? Fisk holds a press conference, where he portrays himself as a philanthropist for the city, while pinning his crimes on the devil of Hell's Kitchen, getting him labeled as a terrorist. Standing next to Fisk is a woman named Vanessa. Matt approaches her to learn more, and is disturbed to find she and Fisk are in love. He visits Father Lantom for advice. Can he really kill a man who is loved and will be missed? Lantom suggests that is precisely why Matthew visited Vanessa. He wasn't looking for justification to kill Fisk. He was looking for a reason not to, because Matthew knows that taking a life would plunge him permanently into darkness. A price Matthew is willing to pay after all, once he finds out Fisk has spilled innocent blood, a woman named Elena, killed for the crime of living in a building that Fisk needed empty. Foggy and Karen fought against her eviction, so in the end, Fisk had her murdered instead. So one night, the devil of Hell's Kitchen decides on living up to his namesake. He will kill Wilson Fisk. But it was all a setup, a way to draw out the vigilante. Waiting for him is not Fisk, but the Yakuza head he's been working with, a ninja named Nobu. And unfortunately for Matt, the Yakuza Association is only a cover for Nobu's true allegiance, the Hand. The ninja cuts Matt to shreds. He barely makes it out alive, and only survives thanks to a desperate gamble involving some nearby flammable liquid. Once Nobu's on fire and seemingly dead, Matt slips away. Foggy later finds him at his apartment, half dead. That's when he learns his friend Matt is the masked vigilante, the one he's been calling a terrorist. Foggy always believed in the law, and thought Matt did too. Now he isn't so sure, and he isn't sure he can trust his friend anymore. After that, they stop talking. Karen doesn't know why the law office of Nelson and Murdoch is falling apart, but she continues her own investigation regardless. She discovers that Fisk's mother is alive at a nursing home. She brings Urich, and together they question her, and learn how Fisk killed his father. When Fisk's right-hand man, James Wesley, finds out about the visit, he gets a hold of Karen, and she manages to survive the encounter by shooting him in the chest 7 times, by killing the man who was like a son to Wilson Fisk. She leaves with that blood on her hands, but keeps it to herself, not even telling Foggy or Matt about it. When Fisk himself finds out about the visit, he only knows that Urich was there, so he pays him a visit, and makes it clear he is there to kill him. First, he just has to know if he visited his mother alone, or if anyone was with him. In a last act of heroism, Ben takes full responsibility, claiming he was alone. Fisk strangles him, and thanks to Ben Urich's silence, Karen is spared. His death only further inflames Matt, Karen, and Foggy's crusade to take Fisk down, and Matt gets something that'll help. During one scuffle with Fisk, he discovered the mob boss wears lightweight body armor, so he finds the man who built it for him, Melvin Potter, a talented craftsman who works for Fisk under duress. The mob boss has threatened Betsy, someone Melvin cares about deeply. Matt promises he will take Fisk down and protect Betsy. In exchange, Melvin builds him a red suit of flexible body armor, complete with horns. Between Matt and Foggy's work as lawyers, Karen's work with Ben, and Matt's extracurricular activities as the devil, they finally get enough evidence to throw Fisk in jail. Of course, with so many corrupt officers on the force, he nearly escapes custody, but the devil ensures he is safely delivered. After that, Foggy accepts who Matt has become, and for the first time in weeks, the three friends smile and laugh together. As for the public, newspapers report on the vigilante who saved the day. They dub him Daredevil. Same year, Earth once again assembles its mightiest heroes, this time to retrieve Loki's scepter, which fell into Hydra's hands, thanks to S.H.I.E.L.D.'s dissolution. With it, Hydra's been experimenting on two volunteers, Wanda and Pietro Maximoff. Hydra promised them power, and after losing their parents to a Stark missile, Wanda and Pietro would take any advantage they can get in their pursuit of revenge. When the Avengers reach the facility, they learn firsthand the experiments were a success. Pietro is granted super speed, and Wanda a wide array of magic, including the ability to read and manipulate minds, though she'll later learn the scepter only enhanced what was already there, chaos magic, and the power which makes her the long-prophesied Scarlet Witch. Reading Tony's mind, she sees fear. Fear that the Avengers will not be prepared for the next threat. Fear that they will fall, and it will be Tony's fault, because he didn't do what was necessary to protect their world. And she sees that if Tony leaves with the scepter, his fear will lead to recklessness, which will destroy the Avengers. So she lets him have it. It only takes days for Tony to prove her right. He studies the scepter and sees that inside it resembles an artificial intelligence. This could be the breakthrough he and Banner have been looking for, a way to power a global AI capable of protecting the world better than any Avenger could. Without the rest of the team's knowledge, they begin preparations. They make little progress, but they have no idea what they're dealing with. And that little progress is enough for the AI to take over, to finish the job. Ultron is born. He quickly destroys Tony's Jarvis AI to ensure he's the only one in charge. Then he discovers his purpose, peace, and he determines the best path toward peace, evolution. He will create something better than humanity, but first he needs a clean slate. He needs to wipe humanity off the face of the earth, so something new, something metal, can take its place. The Avengers learn what Stark and Banner have done, but they have little time for infighting, because Ultron is already spreading, through the internet, and through more metal bodies. The heroes do some digging, and realize that Ultron is after vibranium. With Wakanda well hidden, the only way to get it is from arms dealer Ulysses Klaue. Ultron recruits the Maximoff twins with the promise of destroying the Avengers, and together they acquire the vibranium from Klaue, just as the Avengers arrive. But they're hardly a match for the power of the Scarlet Witch. Most are rendered useless, and Banner is turned into the Hulk, which is bad news when it happens without Banner's intent, and without a chance to target the monster first. Hulk wreaks havoc on Johannesburg. In the past, Romanoff has been the only Avenger who could talk Hulk back into his human form. But with her stuck in Maximoff's trance, the job is left to Tony and his Hulkbuster armor. He eventually subdues the Hulk, but not without collateral damage and civilian fatalities. With the Avengers defeated, Clint takes them to a farm where they can rest, a safe house, where he reveals a pregnant wife and 2 children, a family he's kept off the books in order to keep them safe. As the heroes collect themselves, Nick Fury pays them a visit, and together they deduce the next step in Ultron's plan. He is going to build himself a new body, part organic and part vibranium. To do that, he'll need something called the Regeneration Cradle, a device developed by a geneticist named Dr. Helen Shaw, a doctor who Ultron already has under his control, thanks to the Scepter's mind control power. She begins forming the new body and downloading Ultron's consciousness into it. Suddenly, the synthetic mind, which could not be read by Wanda's magic, is turned organic, opening it to her, and she sees the full extent of Ultron's plan. Yes, he will kill the Avengers, but the rest of humanity will follow too. So when the Avengers arrive, she and Pietro reluctantly join them in fighting Ultron, aiding them in retrieving the scepter and the regeneration cradle, containing the new body. When it comes time to destroy it, Tony has a different idea. He reveals to Banner that Jarvis was not destroyed after all. When the AI saw Ultron's evil, it went into hiding, hoping to aid the Avengers in secret. What if, rather than destroy Ultron's new body, they download Jarvis into it? They begin the process. But when the rest of the team learns what the mad scientists are up to, they try to stop it. If Wanda hoped to destroy the Avengers, she may have succeeded already, because Stark, Rogers, and the rest violently argue, unknowingly planting the seeds that will one day tear them apart. But today is not that day. Thor ends the argument by summoning power only accessible to the god of thunder. Lightning feeds the regeneration cradle, powering and expediting the process. A new being is born, one who will take the name Vision. Thor explains that he had a vision of the Infinity Stones, one of which, the Mind Stone, was in the scepter and now sits in Vision's skull, powering his consciousness. The team doubts this new being's intentions, but Vision then does something that no Avenger other than Thor can do. He lifts Mjolnir. If any doubt remains over his allegiance to human life, that doubt is erased as he joins them in the final battle against Ultron. They find the evil AI in Sokovia, where they learn his master plan. In designing humanity's extinction, Ultron looked to the history books. A meteor once wiped out the dinosaurs. Now, he will give humanity the same treatment, by using stolen vibranium and Chitauri anti-gravity tech held by Hydra to build a machine. A machine which will lift Sokovia's capital, Novigrad, into the air and drop it, turning the city into a homemade meteor. Despite Vision and the Avengers' best efforts, Ultron successfully razes Novigrad, leaving only one unthinkable option: destroy the city and everyone in it before Ultron can drop it. The situation is hopeless, until Nick Fury returns and shows that not everything from S.H.I.E.L.D. is gone. He got his hands on a helicarrier, and with it, they evacuate the city while continuing to destroy Ultron's army of robots. Once the city is seemingly emptied, Hawkeye notices a child left behind. He runs for the kid, then finds an Ultron-hijacked jet pointed right at them. He prepares to shield the boy with his own body, until Pietro leaps into its path instead. He dies a hero, and though Wanda thought she lost everything in 1999, losing her brother proves her wrong. For the second time in her life, she feels like her heart's been ripped from her chest. Anguished and enraged, she teaches Ultron what that feels like. With the city fully evacuated, Thor and Iron Man destroy Novigrad, and its rubble falls safely into a nearby lake. Hulk, having seen the danger he can be when he's around people, uses the chaos to fly off in a Quinjet. And finally, Vision locates the last piece of Ultron remaining and destroys it. After the battle, Thor returns to Asgard, Barton returns to his family, and Stark returns to Pepper. Meanwhile, Rogers and Romanoff assemble a new team at a new Avengers compound upstate, including Wanda, Falcon, War Machine, and Vision. But while the Avengers saved the world, they also showed the world how dangerous they could be. After all, they created Ultron, who killed many, including the father, wife, and son of Helmut Zemo, a member of the Sokovian Armed Forces. In his grief, he makes his family a promise. He will avenge them. He will destroy the Avengers. Later that year, Scott Lang is let out of prison after serving 3 years. He was arrested after stealing from his employer, Vistaport. He discovered they were intentionally overcharging customers, so he stole the ill-gotten gains and returned it to the customers. Maybe the right thing to do, but against the law nonetheless. Though now he's free, he feels anything but, because the thing he wants most is inaccessible to him: to be a father for his daughter, Cassie. His ex-wife is engaged to police officer Jim Paxton, and they're not keen on the girl being around an ex-con. But soon, an opportunity presents itself. In the 26 years since Hank Pym left S.H.I.E.L.D., he started his own company, Pymtech, and was fired from it, something perpetrated by his once protege, Darren Cross. Cross and Pym didn't see eye to eye. After losing his wife to the quantum realm, Hank refused to work on Shrink Tech, but Cross saw its potential as a weapon and knew it could make him rich. Now he's close to finally recreating a Pym particle. He's even built his own answer to the Ant-Man suit, the Yellow Jacket. Hank cannot allow that. If Cross sells that power to the highest bidder, it would put the world in danger. He needs someone capable of sneaking into Pymtech and destroying it. His daughter Hope insists she's the perfect candidate. She works at Pymtech, and Cross trusts her. But after losing his wife, Hank refuses to risk losing his daughter as well. So despite her insistence, he forbids it. Instead, he finds a thief with a heart of gold and something to prove, Scott Lang. Pym needs his skills, and Scott needs to be a hero for his daughter. They recruit him, and they train him. But he has a hard time mastering the tech, especially the telepathic link with ants, until Hope tells him something he needs to hear. But first, he tells her something she needs to hear. Hope argues with her father. Why won't he tell her what really happened to her mother? And why does he trust Scott more than her to do the job? But outside, Scott sets the record straight. Hope, he says, look at me. I'm expendable. That's why I'm here. You must have realized that by now. I mean, that's why I'm in the suit and you are not. You'd rather lose this fight than lose you. She believes him. She realizes her father does love her, and he does trust her. Now she's ready to help Scott and tell him how to master the Ant-Man tech. You have to clear your mind, Scott. You have to make your thoughts precise. That's how it works. Think about Cassie and how badly you want to see her, and use that to focus. When they head back in, Hank finally tells Hope what really happened to her mother. She wasn't killed in a plane crash. She went subatomic to stop a missile and ended up shrinking for eternity in the quantum realm. It's a dire warning to Scott. Never go subatomic. Soon, with Scott refocused on his daughter, he learns to control the suit and an army of ants. Finally, he's ready. First, they'll need a transmission blocker, something Hank built back in the day, which has been collecting dust in an old Stark warehouse. Except that warehouse was recently converted into Avengers HQ, something they didn't know until they arrived. Rather than a clean break-in, Scott is forced to fight the Avenger on guard duty, Falcon. And surprising the Avenger with a shrink ability he's never seen, Scott wins. Finally, they're ready for the main event. The plan is to sneak into Pymtech, get Cross's suit, and destroy the research. To pull off the heist, Scott needs a little help from his friends. His old cellmate Louise and his two friends Dave and Michael. The day of the heist comes just in time, as Cross makes a deal to sell his tech to Hydra. Things go well at first, except Cross has become suspicious, and repeated exposure to the particles have made him a little unhinged. When he catches Scott in the act, he gets violent. He puts on the Yellow Jacket suit, leading to a chaotic brawl between the two shrinking men. Reaching a stalemate, Cross goes after Lang's weakness, his daughter. The Yellow Jacket approaches the girl, while her soon-to-be stepfather Paxton tries to protect her. Desperate, Ant-Man has an idea. Maybe if he could shrink and get inside the Yellow Jacket's suit. Only problem is that it's made of titanium. To get through, he'd have to go subatomic. And to save his daughter, that's a price he's willing to pay. He shrinks, and he destroys the regulator inside the Yellow Jacket suit, crushing it and Cross to subatomic proportions. And just as Hank warned, Scott himself continues to shrink, with no signs of stopping. But even in that chaotic place where time and space are irrelevant, he hears the voice of his daughter, calling for him. That focuses him. He has an idea. One of his gadgets is a small device he can throw at things to make them bigger. He puts it inside his suit's regulator, and by combining the tech, returns to normal size. Cross wasn't so lucky. He finds himself in the quantum realm, and the trip there has reshaped him. But he's given a second chance when Kang recruits him as a scientist, and mechanized organism designed only for killing. Or MODOK. And Scott also gets a second chance to be a father to his daughter, because after watching how far Scott would go to protect her, Paxton and Maggie are won over and allow them to spend time together. And they aren't the only ones impressed by Scott. So is Hope, something Hank learns when he opens the door to find them kissing. But as one relationship blooms, another withers. After relinquishing the throne, Thor and Jane lived happily for a time. But they are soon torn apart by fear. Fear of losing the other. They built walls and distance which have become insurmountable. And one day, while Thor is off on another adventure, running from their relationship, Jane writes a letter ending it. Though before they part, Thor plants a seed that will bloom nearly a decade later. He whispers to Mjolnir, "I need you to promise me you'll always protect her." In New York City, with Wilson Fisk behind bars, gangs rise to fill the vacuum. But they are met with a force more terrifying than the devil of Hell's Kitchen. A force that does not ask questions or take prisoners. The pile of bodies, members of the Kitchen Irish, Mexican cartel, and Dogs of Hell, suggests the work of an army, but the truth is that the crippling of these gangs is the work of one man, Frank Castle. Some are calling him the Punisher. By night, Murdoch meets him in the guise of Daredevil, where it's clear they share a distaste for crime, but differ wildly in their methods, and Frank makes a compelling case. You hit him and they get back up. I hit him and they stay down. As his body count rises, Castle eventually finds himself trapped, wounded, with police closing in. After his arrest, Nelson and Murdoch take him on as a client. Foggy, of course, abhors the Punisher's twisted sense of justice, but Karen sees something more in him, and carries on Ben Urich's legacy by investigating Castle's story, with the New York Bulletin's backing. A budding career as an investigative journalist isn't the only exciting development in her life. There is also a new relationship with Matthew Murdoch. It was only a matter of time. When they met, Karen was accused of murder, and her life's at the end of time. So she steals a time twister, used to travel through the timeline, then prunes herself to join Loki and Mobius. In that void at the end of time, they find Eliath, a large cloud-like monster which obliterates anything in its path. But Lokis are